Today we are going to see. What if Bella was the lost emissary of the Alpha Twins? So let's get started. The entire house was silent. So silent it made me uncomfortable. 7 pairs of golden eyes stared at me like I had grown another head. Come on, Bella, you can't be serious. Emmett hollered at me. I sighed. This was going to be a lot more difficult than I had expected. When Edward left a couple of months ago, I was hurt. Really hurt, but I had to suck it up. I couldn't afford to be weak, not when I had people who expected companionship and advice. I was an emissary, a druid, and as such I had responsibilities in the supernatural world. Look, I know this is not what you expected, but it is the best for everyone. Everyone was shocked. I saw it in their eyes, but it had to be done. Damn the consequences. Being a druid was like being a compass. Certain people, or more specifically certain werewolves, relied on us to stay connected to this world, keep them grounded and most of all human. Some of us were dead because of the Alpha Pack led by Deucalion, but those that remained alive, even if in secret, could not just shrug our duties, simply Becca. Use most of the time they could be used to spare many lives regardless of species. Edward looked at me with a hurtful look, capable of breaking through the thickest ice, but I had to stick to my plans. No matter what. Guess karma really is a bitch. Months ago he hurt me and now I guess it was my turn, unfortunately. Esme was trying to comfort him by placing a hand on his shoulder, not that it was helping. Love, you can't really mean that. I know you were hurt when I left, but it's all over now. I stepped forward and pinched my nose in thought. I know that I hurt you and your entire family, except maybe Rosalie. But it's just better that way. We brought you home to the people you belong with. Your family, not me. Alice shook her head and interfered. This is completely ridiculous, Bella. You went with me to Italy and faced the Volturi to make sure Edward came home safely, and now you come up with this ridiculous idea that you two shouldn't be together. Carlisle and Jasper tried to talk, but she didn't give them opportunity. Her determination was unsettling and it was angering me, something that Jasper must have felt because he closed his eyes as if trying to catch a breath. I saw you two together. Married and happy. Alice, your visions aren't always reliable. You said so yourself. Aren't you showing some nerve? Rosalie commented while looking at her nails, making me roll my eyes. I couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't be with someone who is as controlling as Edward is. All he wants is to know everything that I do every single second. He doesn't allow me to decide things for myself. It's like he is my own personal bodyguard or babysitter, whatever you wanna call it. How am I supposed to take care of werewolves and homicidal psychos if he thinks that even walking arrow the neighborhood alone is too dangerous? I know I'm human and that there are millions of seemingly harmless things that could result in death, but goddammit, I'm sorry for all of this. I never wanted to cause drama. But it's the best for everyone, especially for you, Edward, even if you don't see it yet. We're just too different. Esme nodded in a motherly way. Bella, sweetie, are you sure about this? You two looked so in love. Yeah, I second that. I liked having you in the family. Emmett pouted and Rosalie snorted. Jasper looked at me with sorrow. I'm sorry, Bella. I know I made a mistake. I stopped him. None of this is your fault, Jasper. And don't think for one second that I blame you for any of this. I guess fate just took its course. After hearing what I said, Edward looked more hurt than ever. Like he was broken. Maybe I shouldn't even had encouraged him, but at the time I had a silly crush on him. Stupid me. I should know better. Great, and now what? We have a human who knows about us. What is the course of action, Carlisle? For the first time Carlisle's melodic voice was heard. We are not going to do anything. I'm sure Bella can keep our secret. I knew exactly what he meant. Just like most of the family, he still hoped that I would reconsider in the near future. They still hoped that I would come back and make up with Edward and that we would live happily ever after. Unfortunately, life was most of the time unfair. People who had been hurt already would probably feel even more pain. People who didn't deserve anything good in their life would probably get it. Until nature decided it was time to turn the tables and bring balance to everybody. Don't worry, Carlisle. You don't have to leave town and we could all still be friends. I won't tell your secret. I was a druid after all. Keeping secrets was what I did best. Finally I walked away and left the house, and consequently my life with the Cullens behind, without a second thought. Monday morning was just like every other day in Forks. The weather was cold and foggy and the thickness of the air made it hard to move, not to mention breathe. Thunder and rain seemed imminent like always, however something felt different. To a druid the behavior of nature and animals meant a lot of things, and the vibe that I received as soon as I opened my bedroom's window was not a good one. It was 7 a.m., so I started to get ready for school. I knew that over the weekend the whole town had found out about my breakup, so I guess it's safe to say today was going to be interesting to say the least. I heard Charlie ing downstairs, so I walked to the kitchen. Morning, Bells. How are you? Don't know yet. Something feels off today. He looked at me with a worried expression. Charlie knew everything about the supernatural world. My mom made sure he knew since she was an emissary and wanted him to know exactly who he was marrying with. I'm glad she did it. Sometimes it's good to know that I don't need to hide anything from him. Please tell me it's nothing that involves Wolfie situations. I laughed at his attempt to make a joke, while grabbing an apple for breakfast, and answered him with a shrug. Not sure yet, but it just might be. Pinching his nose, he sighed and looked at me with a frown. I may not know how to deal with werewolves like you do, but I'm still the chief of police. Call me if you need anything. I smiled mostly to reassure him and nodded. Okay, Dad. Be safe. Walking out the door, I heard my dad mutter something that sounded extremely close to people being arrested regardless of species. Still smiling, I entered my truck and frowned at the intense bad feeling I had. Listening to Pendulum, which happened to be one of my favorite bands, not that anyone actually knew about it, a special L. Why Edward, since he slightly forced me to listen to Debussy every time we were together, I forced myself to tone down my worrying and negativity. No drama, well, at least until I get to the school. As I parked my truck, I saw people looking at me. Rumors were already flying like crazy, some of them were ridiculous. I heard she broke up with him because he didn't want to sleep with her. She cheated on him. Poor Edward. Thank God they broke up. Now the rest of us actually stand a chance again. Bitch. Locking the truck, I walked through the parking lot to meet Angela, who was actually my ONLY true friend on this town and probably the most genuine person. She smiled at me and I waved back. She stood close to Ben and the others. Everyone in the group was giving me looks. Some of them were glares. Some were somewhat smug and others looked genuinely happy. By those I mean Mike Newton and concerned. Hey Bella, how are you? Great, thanks, I said discreetly, looking around the parking lot. We heard about your breakup. It's a shame. Lauren spoke with a smirk which only made me want to slap her. A chorus of Lauren was heard, especially by Angela and Ben. It's okay. I just really don't want to talk about it. A couple of them nodded their heads in understanding, and since it was almost time for our first class, we walked into the school. Angela and I walked together and thanked the gods for that, because I started to feel dizzy. This was not good at all. I couldn't shake the bad feeling I had regardless of what I did, which only got worse as the day passed. I was trying to focus during English class when suddenly a piercing scream was heard in the classroom. Jessica, who was sitting a few tables behind me, was shaking with fear. From the several vents were coming dozens of cockroaches and rats. Everyone started to panic and climbed their chairs. The teacher tried to control the situation and opened the door to let the animals out. Without thinking, I followed them to the cafeteria. By now every single student and teacher were behind me. The animals continued to run to the center of the cafeteria until they suddenly froze and dropped dead instantly, forming a perfect five-fold Celtic knot. The students and teachers were whispering and most of them looked scared out of their wits. Obviously this wasn't normal. This was the doing of a Darach. Only something so dark and deadly could cause something like this. I felt a hand on my shoulder. Bella, are you okay? Angela asked. I was going to answer her, ignoring the fact that the Cullens were obviously listening, when my phone went off, signaling a new text message. Things are much worse. It's time for Plan B. I sighed and swallowed hard. I turned to face Angela, who was scared and slightly shaking. Look, I have to go. I promise I'll explain everything later, it's just a friend needs help. Be careful, okay? She nodded and I ran out of the cafeteria without bothering to justify myself to anyone. It was time to go back to Beacon Hills. Welcome to Beacon Hills. I half smiled when I passed the familiar sign. Finally I had arrived at my destination. Leaving Forks was not a problem for me, however I couldn't say Charlie felt the same way, but he understood. Sort of. When I got home after the cafeteria incident, I packed all my stuff and booked a flight in a rush, while still not forgetting to write a note to Angela explaining the situation the best that I could explain it to her. Driving through the small town, I could tell that almost nothing was different since the last time I was here. The people, the stores, all remained the same except the supernatural disasters that, in one way or another, had left their mark everywhere. As of tomorrow I would enroll in the local high school, but for now I needed all the information I could get, and I knew exactly who could help me. It was past 6 o'clock in the afternoon, so obviously the animal clinic was closed as expressed by the sign hanging at door. I ignored it however and walked in anyway. I'm sorry, we're closed, said my mentor, an older druid with his back still turned to me. Hello Alan. The older man that served as a paternal figure to me turned around. ND smiled, however his face showed clear signs of fatigue. Bella, it's nice to see you again. Likewise. How are things going around here? His face froze as soon as he processed my question, and his expression changed from somewhat happy to utterly worried in seconds. Things in Beacon Hills are difficult to say the least. Which is exactly why I texted you. I snorted and sat on a nearby chair. NCE, this was going to be a long conversation. I could tell. Even if you didn't, I'm sure I would know something was happening. He frowned. I sighed. What do you mean? A couple of days ago something strange happened in Forks, and by that I mean supernaturally crazy, related to a Darach kind of strange. Okay, what exactly happened? I told him everything. The bad vibes I kept having during the entire day. The dizziness and rats and cockroaches dying and forming a five-fold Celtic knot thing. Alan looked deep in thought. Almost like he was trying to solve a puzzle, although it looked like some pieces, the most important ones, were missing. This is definitely not normal. Even by this situation's standards. I mean, we've had plenty of animals accidents, I guess you could call them, in the last couple of weeks. Even the cats in here committed suicide. Whoa, I wasn't expecting this. At all. What do you think this means? He shook his head. I honestly don't know. Hopefully we will find out soon enough. Drinking a gulp of water, he looked at me with a serious business-like expression. The reason I contacted you was because I'm out of options. Deucalion and his pack are more wild than ever, and only you can help them. Chances are the Darach will try to seek its revenge, which I think is related to Deucalion somehow, and when that happens everyone who tries to help him will most likely die. I nodded. This is where I came in. I could try to save a couple of lives in this whole ordeal. And that was exactly what I was going to do. I know. I can't let that happen. I'll start tomorrow. He nodded. I gave my goodbyes and walked out of the clinic, breathing dramatically, trying to inhale the biggest amount of air that I could. This was going to be hard. I just hoped that I was up to the challenge. May the gods be with me. I drove again through the town, though this time I was going to the small apartment that I had rented. I opened the door and immediately lied down on the couch. I needed to relax before tomorrow. The halls of Beacon Hills High School were like those of any other school I had seen. Students were standing next to their lockers, and some of them were looking in my direction. God, I really hated to be the new girl. The reactions were always the same. Whispers, glares, smirks. It was seriously nerve-wracking. I continued to walk through the hallway, ignoring every glance and whisper thrown my way. Everything was going well until I walked in a more isolated area of the high school and was brutally pulled into a classroom. Oi, I started, however a hand was placed in my mouth, forcing me to shut up. I knew it was you. What the hell are you doing here? I looked up only to find a very angry alpha werewolf. He let go of my arm to make sure the door was properly locked and that no one could hear us. There are nicer ways to greet people, you know. I would be fine with just a hello. His eyes flashed red and he growled. Jesus, werewolves seriously needed to keep their tempers in check. What are you doing? You're supposed to stay away. I raised an eyebrow at him. Come on Aiden, you're not stupid. You know exactly what I'm doing here. He tensed up. I could see it through his clothes. His impatient stance just made it much more obvious. We had a deal. How thick are you? I told you. I rolled my eyes. Blah blah blah. Here we go again. I know what you told me, but you know what? I decided it was time to come back. We all know what's happening here. It's just becoming worse by the second, and there's no way you can deal with this alone. He growled and his eyes became even redder. I was pretty sure that by now someone had heard us, and if they hadn't yet they would soon if he continued throwing a tantrum. He seemed to realize this because he drew a very sharp breath in an ATEMPT to calm himself. Not that it was working much. Werewolves, especially alphas, were like this, impulsive, stubborn and easily angered. I'm not alone. My pack can easily handle this. We're alphas, he hissed. Way to be convincing. Not. What pack? Your pack is dead. I'm just trying to help you. Faster than I could register, Aiden pinned me to the wall. His saint-crushing mind giving me no room to escape. You don't know anything. Are you trying to convince me or trying to convince yourself? He was angry. I knew that, but it was the truth. Deucalion didn't care for anyone other than himself, and that included the so-called members of his pack. He punched the wall inches away from my face. I didn't expect it, but wasn't totally surprised either. Aiden always had a bad temper even by werewolf standards. If you know what's good for you, you'll stay the hell away from my business. I don't give a damn about your so-called help. Just stay away from me," he said, hissing every word and looking straight into my eyes. After giving me a warning, which I couldn't care less about by the way, he took one last glance at me before walking away and slamming the door shut. Why did he have to be so goddamn stubborn? I understand that he feels a certain amount of gratitude and loyalty towards Deucalion, but he knows as well as I do that associating with someone like him never brings anything good. Deucalion is a psychopath and has caused nothing but harm to countless people. Judging by the start of my self-appointed mission, there were a couple of outcomes I could already imagine, and none of them looked good. Great, I'm sure that more drama and death is exactly what Beacon Hills needs. I calmed myself and got out of the completely empty yet claustrophobic classroom, bracing myself for a day full of stress. As if facing Aiden wasn't enough, I still had classes to attend. As soon as I shut the door, I bumped into someone, making me fall flat on the floor. The person I bumped into was a girl. She seemed stressed. Her hair was impeccably done, her red hair falling in waves, and her makeup was perfect. "Can you please watch where you're going? I really don't want to be late," she snapped while picking up her books. "I'm sorry, but it wasn't just my fault, you know." She sighed and looked up while I helped her. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to snap at you. I'm just stressed. In a hurry," I offered. "I'm Bella Swan, by the way." She nodded. "Yeah, Lydia Martin." There was something about this girl that screamed help. Call me crazy, but I just knew it in my gut. "Can you tell me where the English classroom is? It's my next class, and in case you haven't noticed, I'm new." She smiled. It was small, but it was a smile nonetheless. "Sure, follow me." I followed her while making small talk along the way. When we finally got to the classroom, I could tell there were at least a couple of werewolves and an argent. "Awesome, note the sarcasm," Lydia said. Goodbye and walked to an expectant group. A boy with tanned skin, another boy who happened to be much paler than the first one, and a beautiful brunette girl who was obviously a hunter. "Hello there. Don't be shy, come in," said the teacher. She looked young, probably in her early 20s, with shiny brown hair, forest green eyes, and a perfect complexion. "I'm Ms. Blake, your English teacher. Nice to meet you." She looked at me as if she could recognize me from somewhere, and to be honest, she wasn't a complete stranger to me either. I mean, I have never seen her face before, but she seemed somewhat familiar to me. I introduced myself to everyone. Some were smiling. Ethan had a pained expression on his face as soon as I said my name, hopefully he wouldn't recognize me, and Aiden kept glaring, which I felt throughout the entire class. Let the games begin. Class dismissed. Don't forget to help the school committee with the preparations for the memorial. Have a nice day, yelled Mrs. Blake E. Then, though more than half of the students had left the classroom, I gathered my stuff slowly, very aware that Lydia's group of friends and Aiden and Ethan were still there. Hopefully a fight wouldn't break out. Aiden kept glaring towards the group and me, although he kept doing the latter in a more discreet way. When he was bored of glaring, he rushed towards the exit while bumping hard into me, mocking my things scatter all over the classroom and forcing my left side to knock hard on a desk's edge. I winced in pain and rolled my eyes. Who knew Aiden could be so mature? Lydia and her friends looked shocked, and so did Ethan. "Jackass," I muttered. I could feel a bruise already forming, but I still lowered myself and started to pick up my stuff. "Are you okay?" I heard a voice ask. It was Ethan, only he was nice enough to try to fix his brother's mess. I shrugged and continued to pick up my stuff. I couldn't face him. Not yet anyway. He continued to help me. Well, that's just Ethan for you, Then, though he could be pretty ruthless when he wanted to. "I'm really sorry. My brother is a jerk most of the time. Don't take it personally though," he said, and I looked at him only to see him smile. In this case I could clearly say he was wrong. It was personal, but I couldn't tell him that. It would just ruin everything, so I shrugged again. "Don't worry about it. I'm fine." He nodded and got up. "I'm sorry again." He walked away, making me notice that we were in fact alone. I was so distracted by what happened that I hadn't even noticed that the other group of teenagers had already left. Off to the nearest bathroom as fast as my bruise would let me. It hurt like hell. When this was all over, I was going to kick Aiden's ass for this. After a couple of minutes I finally found a bathroom. I walked in and checked if it was empty and locked the door. Lifting my shirt slowly, I glanced towards the mirror to check on my battle wound, as I like to call it. It would be the first of many. I could tell even if my mission was only starting. It was huge. The bruise was already black. Not purple or gray. Completely black. Thanks a lot, you arrogant and stubborn son of a bitch with a serious attitude problem. I sighed. There was not much I could actually do right now. In fact, all I could do was wait. The second period bell rang, so I decided to change since I had gym next. I arrived at the gym just in time. Plenty of students were there, including the group of my first class and a tall guy with brown hair and blue eyes. What I didn't notice was that they were approaching me. Hey, you're the new girl, right? I nodded. I'm Scott McCall. So that was his name. Deaton's protege and true alpha in training. I smiled. Bella, the pale boy with cute moles, intervened. We know. We were in your first period class, by the way. I'm Styles. I smiled and shook his hand. The only girl in the group gave me a small smile and introduced herself. I'm Allison and this is Isaac. She said NTED towards the boy with the mesmerizing blue eyes. I nodded. So we saw what happened this morning, huh? No beating around the bush. I liked him already, he continued, even though his friends gave him a warning look. Are you okay? Like okay. Before I could answer, a loud whistle sounded all around the gym. Stilinski. Styles muttered something that sounded like, here we go again, but answered nonetheless. Yes, coach. The teacher, who looked like he was in his 30s, yelled. Shut it, making Styles gulp. New student, where are you? Here, I said and raised my hand. The coach looked at me. Well, Isabella, we're all running laps today, but since it's your first day you can just sit on the bleachers and look pretty. He said and immediately whistled, forcing the students to start running. He's a real charmer, isn't he? I muttered to myself. Allison gave a small laugh. He's always like that. I raised an eyebrow, not believing what she just said. Oh, yeah, you can bet he is. The problem is it sucks for us, added Isaac before running with Allison, Scott and Styles while I walked towards the bleachers. 20 minutes must have gone by, at least. While I watched the other students run, I finally noticed something. The 4 teenagers I had talked to earlier were missing. I looked around. Where could have they gone? There was a medium-sized janitor's closet in the other side of the gym. I decided to check it out. I walked around discreetly, trying not to get caught by the coach. Thankfully he was busy doing whatever. When I was closer to the closet I started to hear CES, so I kept walking and focused my hearing. Cora, you shouldn't even be here. I don't give a damn, McCall. Someone needs to keep an eye on those twins, and since you aren't capable of doing just that, let's just say I volunteered. Cora Hale. And they were talking about Aiden and Ethan. That was not good, so I had to keep listening, but of course gravity had other plans for me. I tripped over something and ended up opening the door, making the entire group look at me. Bella, what are you doing? Isaac asked. I could ask you the exact same thing. The group of teenagers froze at my question. Scott and Allison exchanged looks. Isaac was scratching his neck in a very obvious and nervous way. Styles kept opening and closing his mouth, and Cora just looked downright bitchy with her glare. She definitely was the brunette version of Rosalie. We were just, hanging out, said Styles after a couple of minutes while scratching his head. We do it all the time. I cast him an NVINCED look and he immediately sighs and lowers his head in a defeated manner. Right, sorry to break it to you, Styles, but you're a terrible liar. Crap, he exclaims. Scott takes a step towards me and grasps my shoulders. Look, Bella, we like you and everything, but it's just. But before he can finish telling me whatever excuse he had in mind, Cora steps in, glaring at me fiercely. Do you always stick your nose in others people's business? Her tone was extremely rude, but I wasn't going to back down. I was here to help these kids, her included, to survive. I couldn't care less if she was a Hale. Hell would freeze over before I took orders from her. Are you always this rude to people you barely know? I shot back. Her glare intensified, which I thought was impossible. Look, whoever the hell you are. Bella, whatever. This is a private conversation, and guess what? You're not welcome in it. She said, getting very close to my face. Isaac grabbed her by the waist and kept her close to him while she fought like hell to get out of his embrace. I couldn't take it anymore. Cora was a werewolf, and as such she was powerful in her own right, but there was no way she would be any match for Ethan or Aiden. So I decided to knock some sense into her verbally. I'm just trying to help everyone, Cora. Having conversations on a janitor's closet about Deucalion's pack is not private. If someone overhears us, you're as good as dead. You're a Hale, a survivor. You're supposed to be smarter than that. An awkward silence fell on the small closet. Everyone was staring at me with a shocked expression on their faces. Even Cora stopped struggling against Isaac. How do you know about that? Are you one of them? Seriously, how many of you are there? Styles said all of these almost all at once. I smiled. Charlie would be proud of his interrogation skills, even though they were to be expected since his dad was the sheriff. Styles, let her talk, said Allison for the first time, although surprised she managed to smile at me. I shook my head. I'm not one of Deucalion's minions. I'd rather die than live by his rules. Styles smiled a bit. If you're not working with Deucalion, then who are you? And how do you know who I am? Asked Cora and Isaac at the same time. I sighed and braced myself for an explanation. Since we didn't have time and the janitor's closet was not the most private of places, I decided to give them the post-it version. I know who you are, Cora, because our mothers knew each other. They were somewhat close. About the who I am part, I'm just someone that's trying to keep everyone alive. Scott, who seemed to be slowly digesting all of this information, spoke. How's that even possible? You're not a werewolf, I would know. That's good, Scott, you're learning. Alan would be proud of you. Styles frowned and spoke with plenty of hand gestures. Alan, who the hell is Al? Styles' question was interrupted by Allison, who seemed to have figured out something important. You're an emissary, aren't you? I nodded. Scott opened his mouth but was stopped by the strong coughing that came from Cora. Her face was red, sweat was dripping from her forehead and her pupils were dilated. She dropped to her knees and Isaac kept holding her because she looked like she was about to pass out. The entire group, myself included, kneeled down to help her. What's wrong with her? Questioned Isaac, the exasperation and worry very apparent in his voice. I don't know. The coughing was getting worse and at the same time black blood and mistletoe fell from her mouth. Oh my god, not this crap again. Holy mother of. The boy's rant was interrupted by Scott's yell. Styles, you're not helping. God freaking damn it. I had enough. None of them were helping. Shut up, everyone. I looked at Isaac, who was still trying to help her. She was poisoned. You have to take her to the hospital. They probably won't know what's happening to her, but she has a better chance of survival there. You have to run. We'll warn Darach. Got it. He nodded hurriedly, picked the girl up bridal style and ran out the door. Right now our priority was helping Cora. Hopefully everything would be alright. I got up and closed the door. Scott was already texting Darach. Is she gonna be okay? I looked at Allison and shrugged my shoulders. I don't know. All that I know is that we need to be more careful. As long as Deucalion or the Darach are around, none of us are going to be safe. The other 3 teenagers in the room were livid, breathing hard and looked genuinely scared. So what do we do now? Styles asked, looking paler than usual. Do you have any advice? We need to lay low. All of us, including Darach and Lydia. Especially tonight. The boys looked confused and questioned the Argent girl at the same time. I don't get it. What's happening tonight? The memorial, the short-haired brunette said. The boys looked at her while supporting their weights on the small shelves that were full of cleaning products. Styles face-palmed himself. Our lives are a living hell. I wouldn't be so sure if I were you, Styles. This is just the beginning. The sun had finally set. The wind blew will.ly all over town, spreading a cold chill that was uncommon in California. Tonight was the night Beacon Hills would finally mourn the victims of the unknown serial killer, or should I say the Darach. I drove my rental car to the local high school and parked it. The parking lot was full of people. Parents, students, teachers, ex-students and locals were all here and walking to the school's entrance to show their respects. I followed them only to be greeted by our young and attractive English teacher. Hello Bella, I'm glad at least one of my students is here tonight. She said with her sweet voice and gorgeous smile. However, her eyes were what caught my attention. There was an intense glow in them. At first glance, Miss Blake was nothing more than a ridiculously beautiful, caring and smart young woman who loved her students, but my instincts told me there was a lot more to her. She reminded me of a wildcat, social and sweet yet territorial and lethal when the situation demanded it, of course. I couldn't tell her that, so I smiled instead. Hello Miss Blake, how are you? She smiled. Again, my stomach turned and I fought the sudden urge to puke. There was definitely something very wrong with this woman. I'm great, thanks for asking. She looked around and greeted a couple of people with nods before focusing on me again. Go on, the concert will be starting anytime soon. Hopefully ever. Young will remember this night for a few decades. I nodded quickly and entered the building. Just like Miss Blake had said, everyone was almost seated and the orchestra was getting ready to play. Aiden was seating somewhere in the middle of the room and Ethan was fixing Danny's tie and hair. I had to admit they looked cute together. Hey, said a deep voice from behind me. Turning around I saw Scott, Styles, Allison and Isaac. Hey guys, how's Cora? She's not that good actually. I looked at them wanting further information. Allison was the one who answered. What Styles means is that the doctors don't know what's wrong with her. Just like you said, she's being monitored. Yeah, Allison and I went to the hospital but we couldn't see her. Darach is freaking out. I opened my mouth to speak but was interrupted by Scott. You two did what? He whispered, yelled, making a couple of people look our way. Oh goody, here we go again with the drama, muttered Styles, but everyone ignored him. He said we went to see Cora and I heard that. What I want to know is what the hell were you two doing together? I thought you hated each other's guts. Allison looked at Isaac, who in return was scratching his head and looking down. Calm down, Scotty. This is so not the place to go crazy and murder someone, said Styles while placing a comforting hand on his best friend's shoulder. A loud "Vo" ice erupted from the speakers scattered all over the room, effectively ending our conversation. We chose our seats with Styles leading Scott far away from Isaac and Allison and focused our attention on the stage. After a brief introduction speech, the musicians' students finally started playing. However, no one was enjoying this. In fact, all of those who were listening were scared. The piece they chose was so morbid that instead of honoring the victims, it seemed the orchestra was announcing even more deaths. God, whoever organized this was sick. That's when I realized something. Miss Blake was the one to organize all of this. Crap. I got up and gestured for everyone to do the same. We walked to the exit and stopped near the doors. Guys, I know who the Darach is. Honestly, I don't know how no one figured it out before. Who is it? Asked Styles, because the other three were too shocked to say something. It's Miss Blake, they gasped, genuinely surprised. She's so nice, there's no way she's a serial killer, said Isaac, clearly in denial. However, the other three seemed to consider it. It makes sense, for the most part. I mean, by posing as a school teacher she had access to everything and everyone, right? I nodded. The orchestra kept playing with so much energy. By now everyone in the room was freaked out. I have to agree with Styles, but I don't get it. If she was the Darach all along, why didn't she protect herself from Cora and Boyd on that full moon? Why did she let Darach do all the hard work? Maybe she wanted to gain his trust, I added. Maybe she needed to get close to him for some reason. Styles scoffed loudly, although no one other than us noticed it. Why would she do that? No one wants to get close to Darach, ever. That dude is stone cold. Isaac moved his hands up in the air to get everyone's attention. Hello, she's a teacher. A nice, warm and caring teacher. Why are you trying to make her something she's not? Allison finally spoke. Her voice was hard and made everyone flinch. You don't have to be psychotic to be a killer. You just need a good reason. My aunt taught me that. The pianist hit a particularly hard note, and what happened next shocked everyone. One of the piano pieces broke and slit her throat. Obviously Miss Blake, the Darach, would ever made sure this would be a memorial that no one would ever forget. For the worst reasons. Everyone was screaming and panicking, trying to get out. Suddenly Scott, Isaac and every single person with supernatural hearing in the room, Ethan and Aiden, clutched their ears and dropped to their knees. Aliso and kneeled next to Isaac and Styles next to Scott, either not knowing what to do. What's happening to them? Scott took a deep breath and answered her. Someone's screaming. God, it's so painful. Can you tell where it's coming from? He nodded and Styles helped him get up, and I started to follow them. Isaac and I will find my dad. Maybe he can help us. Good luck, I yelled, and we took off to find whoever was screaming. We walked through the dark corridors, trusting Scott to be our compass. Truth is, I had no idea a school could be so creepy at night. Let's go, guys. It's just around the corner. We heard voices. Two people were arguing in a very heated way. You can't go around murdering kids without suffering the consequences, miss. We'll see about that. As soon as we reached the classroom, we were surprised by what we saw. Sheriff Stilinski was pointing a gun at our English teacher, who looked smug and ready to kill, and Lydia was tied to a chair crying her eyes out and scared for her life. Oh boy, Dad, Styles screamed, making the two adults turn around. Lydia let out a whimper, making all of us look at her. She was sobbing. Her hair looked terrible and her mascara was running down her face. She had a garrote twisted in an awkward angle, obviously hurting her. Styles, get out of here. Before any of us can actually think about doing anything, Mrs. Blake throws a knife to the Sheriff's shoulder, and Scott's entering the classroom in werewolf mode. I manage to go in before a desk is thrown against the door, keeping Styles from helping. He doesn't give up, however. He keeps banging the door as hard as he can. Scott picks up a fight with Miss Murder herself. She evades all of his moves and shows her incredible fighting skills gained from the sacrifice of warriors. I ran up to Lydia and helped her. The garrote is thrown to the floor and the red-headed girl is breathing hard trying to gain oxygen again. You know what's the most annoying thing about teenagers? They never know when to give up. Jennifer keeps fighting Scott, hitting him so hard that he is coughing blood when he falls. Why do you keep dragging these kids around? They're innocent. She turns around and flashes a smile. It's not creepy but honest and somewhat sad. You know why, Bella. We're both emissaries. We know how this world works. I look at her with an inquisitive expression, trying to distract her long enough. Maybe Scott can help Styles' dad and get out. I knew there was something about you the moment you entered my classroom. You better than anyone should understand me, after all you and I are exactly the same. The sheriff was getting up slowly and reaching for his gun that ended up on the other side of the room when the fight broke out. Scott is still trying to recover and Lydia is still crying. I get it, I really do, but why did you choose them? You could have chosen anyone from this town. They have something I need. I'm doing this for everyone. He has to pay for ruining everything we always worked so hard for. Before any of us can say anything else, a shot is heard. Jennifer is hit in the leg. She wobbles a little and smirks. Nice try, old man, but there's a reason why I sacrificed certain people. I sacrificed them so I could borrow their powers. Her leg healed and every single one of us heard a bullet fall to the ground. Healers so that I could heal from any wound, warriors to be able to fight. Philosophers so I could plan my every single move, and virgins. She paused and looked at us while waving at herself. Well, I'm sure you can guess that one on your own. Shish. E walked over to the sheriff and kicked Scott lightly. Maybe if I had sacrificed the philosophers first we wouldn't be here right now. Grabbing Styles' dad by the collar, our former English teacher took of his badge. Kissed him and jumped over the window with our friend's dad. Styles screamed louder than ever while watching the entire scene. I walked over and pushed the table away from the door. He got in with tears in his eyes. Where is she taking my dad? My heart broke for him. No one deserved to have one of their parents sacrificed. Especially not them, they had gone through hell already. I don't know Styles. I'm sorry. I untied Lydia. She was still sobbing, not that I blamed her. We have to go. I have an idea. Styles, I need you to come with me. The pale boy nodded and followed his friend while wiping his tears. I turned to Lydia. I know that the answer is kind of obvious, but I have to ask, are you okay? The girl was shaking. From what I've heard, Lydia Martin was once the most popular girl in this high school. She was very confident until something happened that made her look like the town's freak. I honestly felt sorry for her. No, are you going to kill me? No, I promise. I'm here to help you. All of you. She nodded and smiled in relief, and then she did the unexpected. She hugged me. I smiled a little and hugged her back. These kids were seriously damaged, but then again, having psychotic murderers after you on a daily basis would do that to anybody. A loud noise came from the corridor. On instinct I grabbed the knife that Jennifer had left behind and walked out until Lydia grabbed my arm. I'm not staying here alone. I'm coming with you. Okay, but if someone tries to kill us, you run, got it? We walked out of the classroom as quietly as we could. Everyone was supposed to be gone by now. Lydia grabbed my hand and we kept wandering, paying close attention to every single sound. What's the knife for? We heard from behind us and screamed. Suddenly my ice died down and I had a hand gripping my neck and was pinned against a wall. I asked what was the knife for. It was Aiden. I started grabbing his hand, trying to make him let go, to no avail. Aiden, what are you doing? Let her go. He ignored Lydia's pleas and tightened his grip on my throat. What the hell were you thinking? She's my mate. I should have killed you when you got here. I managed to choke out a couple of words. Don't ask me how, because I have no idea. Wasn't kill her. I could feel my eyes closing. My body was shutting down from the lack of oxygen. I was being swallowed by darkness. This was it. I was going to die, I was sure of it. Out of nowhere Aiden dropped me and I fell roughly on the floor, clutching my throat and coughing for air. Thank God. Breathe slowly. It will help. I nodded, but before I could say something I passed out. Where the hell am I and how did I get here? I got up slightly. My body hurt all over, especially my neck. I felt dizzy and the last memory I had was of Aiden trying to kill me. You're in your apartment. Aiden and I brought you, said Lydia while positioning herself close to me in the couch. I rubbed my neck, trying to ease the pain. Sorry about your neck. I have a couple of questions, you don't have to answer them, but I stopped her. Lydia was a nice girl and I wanted to help her. That was one of the reasons I came to Beacon Hills anyway. But first we had to be comfy and relaxed. I'll help you in any way I can, but don't you want to warn your parents first? We can talk about this another day. She looked sad and almost in the verge of tears again. Crap, what did I say wrong? My parents are never home and I'm an only daughter, so I just don't want to stay alone right now. Oh, okay, you can stay here, then. I don't mind. We can turn this into a sleepover. Sort of. She gave a small laugh. My social skills sucked, but at least she was feeling better, I think. I lead her to my bedroom. It had no luxuries, just a normal-sized bed, a small bedside table and a medium wardrobe. I gave her sweatpants and one of my t-shirts for her to wear. It wasn't much, but I hoped it would be okay. To my surprise, she didn't complain or threw a tantrum when she saw the clothes. Instead, she took them gracefully. Thank you. It's really nice of you to do all of this for a stranger. Don't be so hard on yourself, Lydia. You're not a stranger, you're my friend. I showed her the bathroom and let her shower in peace. She took a while, not that I blamed her because I would do the exact same thing. When she was done, it was my turn. Like I said, I took at least 30 minutes trying to wash out all of the stress that I had accumulated in just a few hours. That was all it took for us to find out that our English teacher was an emissary and was out there murdering people to get revenge. That was all it took for Styles's father to disappear and to be taken God only knows where. 60 minutes was all it took for me to help a seriously damaged teenage girl, Banshee, who was almost murdered by said teacher and almost get killed myself. And to think that a couple of weeks ago I was complaining about how boring Forks was. Well, there's something I'm never doing again. Walking to the small living room, I saw Lydia seating on the couch surrounded by a couple of pizza boxes and sodas. I texted your address to Styles and ordered dinner. I hope you don't mind. As if I would mind. Nope, not at all. Nope, I don't mind. I sat on the couch Chinese style and grabbed a slice of pizza. So what do you want to know? How do you and Aiden know each other? Wow, this girl went straight for the big questions, but that's Lydia for you. She isn't called a genius for nothing. My family has been bound to Aiden's pack for a very long time. We actually grew up together in a way. The position of emissary of a pack is hereditary. After my parents' divorce, my mom fell in love with a human a couple of years later, but she couldn't leave because a pack can't exist without a druid in them. It's just too dangerous. There are a lot of strong personalities in a pack and an emissary helps keep them in check. The only way my mom would be able to leave was if a family member was able to replace her, so I stepped up. How old were you? I was 10. She looked at me with wide eyes. I knew exactly what was going through her mind. I know. That's a lot of responsibility for a 10-year-old. But in the supernatural world, that's how things work. Anyway, Alan's family took me in and I kept doing what my ancestors had been doing for centuries. When I was 14, however, things changed drastically. Aiden and Ethan were the omegas of the pack. You know what that means, right? She nodded. They were treated so badly and even I couldn't help them. Obviously they decided to take action when Deucalion offered them help. They had to kill the entire pack, including me. They were like my big brothers. Since none of them could actually do it, Aiden helped me fake my death by killing a girl that looked somewhat like me. Not even Ethan knows about it. After that I left to live with my parents. I was actually living with my dad until I came here to help you guys. Wow, that's quite a story. But if you guys were that close, why did he try to kill you? That doesn't make any sense. I shook my head and braced myself to explain it to her. Actually it does. You're his mate. That's the only thing that werewolves value more than their pack. Well, that certainly explains the almost suffocating protectiveness and the non-stopping desire to make out. I laughed and she laughed with me. She was a fun and smart girl. She was becoming a fast friend, there was no doubt about that, and you know what the best part is? She was able to keep Aiden in check. What about you? Are you the mate of any werewolf? Yes, I am, but I haven't seen him in years and he probably thinks that I'm. We got interrupted by a loud bang on the door. Lydia and I jumped in surprise and got up at the same time. On the other side was a very angry and frustrated Styles. What happened? Lydia asked. That bitch took Scott's mom and my best friend joined Deucalion's pack. Shit, God, could this situation get any worse? I ushered him in and tried to comfort him the best that I could. This was gonna be a very long night. We have to do something. Styles was pacing like crazy in my living room for what seemed like hours. Lydia and I were freaking out by now. Isn't there like a druid-y concoction or whatever that can help us find them? Styles, I'm an emissary, not a witch doctor. You need to calm down. Lydia pulled him to the couch and rubbed his back in a futile attempt to calm him down. The boy was so stressed that I could imagine him pulling his hair out. I can't. I just can't. Styles, look at me, said the redhead, placing her hands on his cheeks. He did as he was told but looked in the verge of tears. I know this sucks and we'll help you, but you need to relax. Okay, maybe I can even try to locate them, I guess, being a banshee and all that. But before she could finish, Styles interrupted her. Wiping his tears, he looked at her with an interrogatory expression. That's what you are, a banshee? She nodded. That's just wow. It's definitely better than being a psychic. Maybe now we can figure out a way to actually trigger your powers. This boy was amazing. I had no other words to describe him. Even though he was going through a lot right now, he was still willing to help a friend. Yeah, I mean, I never dealt with a banshee before, but I know a couple of basic things about them, and if you want to, Lydia, I can call my mom. Maybe she has a book or something. I added. You would do that? Thank you. Once again the girl smiled. And you? I pointed at Styles. Don't worry about it. We'll find your dad and everyone else. Styles got up and hugged me. He smiled until he noticed what I think was the huge bruise on my neck. What the hell happened to you after we left? I shrugged. Blame it on Aiden. Styles looked at me with a freaked out expression. It's a long story. I'll go get the ice cream and we'll tell you everything. I went into the kitchen and brought a huge bucket of Ben & Jerry's cookie dough flavored ice cream. Grabbing 3 spoons, I walked back into the small living room. Styles and Lydia were already cozy. If she wasn't Aiden's mate, I would really encourage her to go out with Styles. They looked so cute together. Sitting in the other corner of the couch, I gave a spoon to each of them. Andy with no delay started eating the ice cream. I stopped when I noticed that both of them were just staring at me. What? Do I have something on my face? No, your face is perfect. I had no idea you were an ice cream junkie. I really was an ice cream junkie, now that I thought about it. There was no way I could deny that, so I just shrugged. What can I say? Some people jog, others get drunk, and I eat ice cream when I'm stressed or moody or whenever I feel like it. They laughed again. Seriously, what was going on with them? I wasn't even that funny. What do you wanna know, Stilinski? Everything. And that was exactly what we did. We told him what had happened after he and Scott left, which wasn't much anyway. After a couple of minutes, my newly found friends started eating ice cream and we kept talking until 2 a.m. at least. I seriously don't remember falling asleep, but I do remember waking up to a very startled Styles. Dude, why are you screaming? Did someone break in? Yes. I looked around and my eyes finally landed on Darach and Cora. She looked a lot better, even healthier if I dare to say. And Darach, well, he looked a lot like I remembered him, just a lot more muscular and broody. You. I nodded and looked him right in the eyes. They were still very green and they kept drawing me in just like when I was a child. It's nice to see you again, Darach. Styles and even Cora kept looking between both of us since we were staring at each other at the moment. You know each other? Asked Cora. I'm his mate. She's my mate. We said at the same time without looking at everyone else. All I wanted to do was hug him, but I couldn't. He probably hated me anyway. Well, okay. This is so awkward. Tell me about it, Cora said and elbowed her brother. He glared at her but she ignored it. Thanks for helping me. I know I wasn't exactly nice to you, but I wasn't one to hold grudges. According to Charlie, I was way too nice for that. Besides, if I was in her shoes, I would probably react the same way. It's fine, really. I didn't do anything. Do you need something? Darach was the one who answered me. We came to ask you a couple of questions. He stopped abruptly and frowned at something. What is that on your neck? Quote, Jesus. Everyone needed to stop focusing on my neck. When all of this was over, I was going to kick Aiden's ass for that bruise. I could hear the anger on Darach's voice. He looked ready to kill someone. I couldn't tell him the truth because if I did, he was going to find Aiden and get himself killed, but I couldn't lie to him either. So I took the easy way out. I omitted what happened. Don't worry about it. It's just a battle wound. Styles scoffed. It's a battle wound, all right. I punched him lightly on the arm. Ow, what was that for? I rolled my eyes at him. Can you please go wake Lydia up? I'll make coffee and then we'll talk. He left and muttered something under his breath that I couldn't hear. I walked in the living room just like I had the night before and got comfy. Lydia was already awake. After a couple of minutes of silence, Darach's voice was heard. Last night, Jennifer told me something. He looked up and straight into my eyes. She said that Paige was marked. Do you know what that means? My eyes widened. I didn't know how to tell him this, but I had no choice. It means that you did her a favor when you killed her. You know, Cora screamed at me, her eyes flashing gold. She sure was angry. I'm his sister and I only found out about that a couple of days ago. Calm down, Cora, hissed Darach. The younger werewolf looked down in shame and composed herself. She felt hurt and betrayed and I understood that. I grabbed her hand. It's okay. He didn't tell me anything either. How do you know about that? In my defense, Darach, I'm an emissary. There aren't a lot of things that I don't know. Okay, can you just tell us already? I'm sensing that being marked is not a good thing. It really wasn't. Usually it just GHT lots of pain to everyone involved and their families. Fine, but no interruptions. Deal. Everyone nodded, although some were more reluctant than others. I'm guessing that all of you know of the existence of Nintons, right? Yeah, our mother used to tell us that it was a sacred place for druids. It's a lot more than that actually. You see, Nintons may be sacred to druids only but they exist to benefit everyone. Supernatural or mortal. If treated correctly a Ninton will bring peace and harmony but when disturbed I guess you could say all hell breaks loose. But I read somewhere isn't a Ninton just a tree? Lydia asked. Not at all. Trees are just basically the host of that power, I guess. Usually the elders chose the oldest trees in a grove, but once they're chosen they gain a will of their own. So, you're saying that once a tree is chosen it gains life. Is that even possible? That's right. And yes, Styles, it is possible. The 4 people in my living room were quiet, probably trying to assimilate the information I had just given them. Darach ran his fingers through his hair. I already knew all of that. What does that have to do with Paige? Everything. Paige was marked because of the Ninton. They all looked at me, question marks evident on their faces begging me to explain further. Looking to Styles and Lydia I could see the dozens of questions they wanted to make. A couple of years ago before I took my mom's place as an emissary and faked my death, we came to Beacon Hills for a couple of days with our pack. We heard rumors that a Ninton had been destroyed. No one knew who did it. But that wasn't even on anyone's to-do list. Everyone's priority was to get it fixed before things got out of hand. The druids tried to nurse it back to health, even my mom tried to help. But it was useless. Things were getting worse very quickly, and even though that's not much considering it's Beacon Hills, lots of people, supernatural or otherwise, were getting worried. What happened? Asked Cora. Plenty of people were dying, animals showed up dead even though when examined they looked perfectly healthy, packs were fighting amongst themselves, so elders decided to do something. A group of them decided to take matters into their own hands by becoming Darachs. Darachs, as in more than one. I nodded in Lydia's direction. Wait, aren't they supposed to be evil or something? That's the thing, they're not exactly evil, they're just druids who let go of their status as advisors and anchors. Yes, they're dangerous because their loyalty is to themselves and they are willing to do everything to make sure that their goals are achieved, but not necessarily evil. Like sacrifices, mumbled Styles in such a low voice that I had no idea how I heard him. Exactly. They wanted to make sure that the local Ninton would regain power so they started looking for suitable people for the ultimate sacrifice. Is that what Paige was? A sacrificial lamb, hissed Darach once again. His fists were clenched and white from all the pressure that he was applying. I'm sorry, Darach, but that's exactly what she was. Gasps could be heard around the room. It was hard to hear but it was the truth. These 4 kids, they had to be special. They had to be smart, talented and most importantly emotionally balanced. Once they were found they were marked with this symbol. I got up. Found a piece of paper and a pen and began to draw. It's a shield knot. It's a Celtic symbol for protection. It also channels the 4 elements and pagan gods. I thought druids usually worked with 3s. Usually, yes, but this was an emergency. They needed power and fast, hence why they chose teenagers who possessed more qualities than the ones needed for regular sacrifices. I stopped, took a deep breath and continued. They were meant to die at 18. But Paige died at 16, right? So what happened to the other kids? They died anyway. Even though the cycle was broken they were meant to die. The Ninton recognized them already, so if the Darachs didn't murder them once all of them were of age, which I hardly doubt by the way, the Ninton would. What do you mean, Bella? The Ninton would make them drop dead, is that it? I shrugged. Probably, Cora, I don't know. Silence reigned in the living room of my rented apartment. Not a word was spoken. The truth was, I felt sorry for Paige. No one deserved what she had gone through or would go through if she lived until 18. Hopefully she was at peace now, wherever she was. How was she going to die? I heard Darach's voice and looked down. Tell me, how was she going to die? It broke my heart to see and hear him like this. He seemed broken and angry. She was supposed to bleed out on top of the Neemton. Slowly and painfully. Why? The other 3 teenagers inquired. Because blood is life, even in the supernatural world. That was the last straw. I looked up and saw Darach bleeding a low T, but before I could help him he walked out of the door. Without a second thought, I went after him. When I got outside, he was punching the nearest wall with his bleeding yet already healed hand. I should have seen it. Maybe I could have helped her. Get her out of that stupid sacrifice. He kept punching the wall. Over and over again. Stop. It's not your fault. No one could have helped her. I yelled and hugged him. It took him a while to hug me back, but I didn't care. I knew how he felt. Useless. Unfortunately, I knew that feeling all too well. We stayed like that for a couple of minutes. His was the closest I had been to him since I arrived, and even though the situation wasn't the happiest one, I was content. What the fuck is going on here? If that's your way of apologizing, you should start over. I didn't came here to apologize. I raised my eyebrow at Aiden. If he wasn't going to apologize, then what was he doing here? Okay, maybe I am, but you still have to explain what the hell are you doing with a hail? I sighed. What is it with werewolves and their protectiveness? Seriously, this had to stop. It was way too Edward Cullen for my taste. She doesn't have to tell you anything. Aiden angrily placed his helmet on his motorcycle and walked towards Darach, ready to punch him, until I put myself in the middle, that is. What's with you and having death wishes? He snapped. What's with you and trying to punch everyone? That's when I noticed. He came here to tell me something really important. I wonder what it was. How do you know each other? Said Darach, and he sounded jealous. I'm not sure what it was. I'll explain. Let's just take this inside, please. I looked at Aiden. Lydia's fine, by the way. He nodded and we walked inside where the other teenagers were. We walked in together. Well, me between the 2 werewolves. As soon as Cora, Lydia and Styles saw Aiden, they gasped, for very different reasons, I'm guessing. Next thing I know, Cora is jumping and punching Aiden. What the hell are you doing here? Haven't you done enough? Before anyone could answer her, Lydia stepped in. Haven't you learned to use your words instead of your fists? I know you're a werewolf, but you can't go all Karate Kid on everyone. Especially not on him. Aiden placed an arm around Lydia, making her relax visibly. It's okay, Lydia. She looked skeptical but didn't say anything, instead she just leaned into him. Guys, if you destroy anything, the landlord will kill me. No more fights, please. They didn't say anything, but they didn't argue either. You were right, you know. Deucalion killed Ennis. The guy has gone mad. I'm sorry I almost killed you. I nodded. Aiden didn't apologize very often, so I was proud of him for saying it. It's okay, Smoochie. I get it. He frowned at my old nickname for him. I had a nickname for each of the twins. Aiden was Smoochie because when he was 13 his hormones were crazy, making him kiss almost every girl he met. Ethan was Snuggles because he liked to snuggle. Obviously. What's with the weird nicknames? I'm Aiden and Ethan's emissary. They were the reason I came to Beacon Hills. So what were you doing with him? Aiden pointed at Darach. It's called a hug. It's when 2 people's arms wrap around each other in a comforting gesture, I told him as if speaking to a toddler. He hated that. You're not funny. He paused. There's something else I came here to tell you. Ethan knows. I panicked. This was terrible. If Ethan knew, then it was only a matter of time before Deucalion found out that I was alive. This time, he was going to make sure that I died and probably drag Ethan and Aiden along. How did he find out? Did you tell him? No, he probably recognized your scent or something. That's not very comforting, Aiden. My heart was beating like crazy. I was about to pull my own hair out. Calm yourself down before you have a heart attack. Darach growled. Actually, a heart attack would be good right now, at least I would be dead. Styles grabbed my arms, forcing me to stop pacing around the living room. You need to breathe. We have done things like this for a while. Having someone hunting us down is nothing new. You're going to be fine. I didn't believe him even for 1 second because he looked as freaked out and scared as I was, but for everyone's sake I nodded. Just then, someone knocked on the door, making me jump. Please don't let it be Deucalion. I walked slowly towards the door and opened it. It was Ethan. I let out a huge breath, thanking the gods that it was my other annoying big brother. He smiled, and before I could say anything else, he gave me a big hug. I honestly hadn't realized how much I had missed those. You're alive. You're okay. We hugged for what seemed like hours. By the time we closed the door, most of the people on my living room were smiling. Just then, Aiden got punched, again. I almost pitied him. Almost. Grabbing his jaw, The hot-headed twin hissed. Seriously, you deserved that one. You knew how bad I felt when I thought she was dead. Why didn't you tell me? Dude, you're a terrible liar. Ethan's eyes flashed red. He looked ready to kill. How did you find out, anyway? That day in the classroom. Your scent seemed familiar to me. It took me a while to figure it out, but when I smelled it on Aiden I knew for sure it was you. I scoffed. Aren't you supposed to be the smart one? Snuggles. He smirked. We were just getting used to each other again, when Darach's phone rang. It's Jennifer. Why is she calling you? I asked, knowing that deep down I probably didn't want to know the answer. We were sort of together. I kept quiet. It hurt to know that he had been with other people, but I couldn't judge. As far as he was concerned, I was dead. And he had every right to move on with his life, just like I did, to some extent, with Edward. Yeah, Sour Wolf over here has a tendency to find bitchy psychotic girlfriends. Styles said in an obvious effort to make me laugh. It worked even though Darach glared at him. No offense. What are you waiting for? Pick it up and put it on speaker. Once again I chuckled as Darach did as he was told. Apparently Jennifer wanted his help. She promised not to sacrifice the parents if and only if he helped her take down Deucalion. When he asked where she was, she said no one would find her unless she wanted them to. After having his word she hung up, but not before telling him she would contact him when the time was right. It's true, we can't find her anywhere. There's no tracks or scent even when we go to places that we know she was in. Maybe the Neemton is helping her, muttered Lydia, making everyone look at her. What? If you know something just spit it out, firecracker. Lydia rolled her eyes at Cora's impatience. It's just a theory, I'm not even sure. When she saw everyone's glare she continued. Bella said that a Neemton has a will of its own, right? We know that it brought Jennifer back. What if the Neemton is keeping her hidden until it's time for her to kill Deucalion? That way she can actually do what she came back for. It was a possibility. Unheard of but possible. I was going to answer when Lydia started screaming. The werewolves were covering their ears, to keep the high-pitched sound out. When it stopped, Styles and I looked at her. Why did she do that? Why is she wailing? It means one of us is going to die. Are you sure you can't stay out of this? Everyone had already left my apartment, except Ethan and Aiden. Guys, you know I can't. The twins exchanged looks and lowered their heads in defeat. We know, it's just we don't want to lose you. My eyes were full of tears but I couldn't let them fall. I refused. Even if I die, it will be for a good cause. They frowned. I'm an emissary. This is what I'm meant to be doing, taking care of both of you. I hugged them. I love you boys. You two are my favorite puppies, you know that, right? They laughed at my joke. While I was ruffling their hair. That happened 2 days ago. Tonight, the lunar eclipse was going to happen, which meant that Jennifer would exert her revenge at some point today. Bella, are you sure you're okay? Right now. It was early morning and Styles, Allison, Lydia and Isaac were with me at the animal clinic. In fact we were only waiting for Scott so that we could perform T's ancient Gaelic ritual in order to find their parents. After agreeing with Lydia's theory about the Neemton and Jennifer, we realized that the only way we could make sure that she would keep her word was to find their parents on our own, and of course that meant finding the Neemton. After talking to Alan and understanding all of the consequences, Allison, Scott and Styles agreed to it. Not that I blamed them, even if it was dangerous. I would do it for my parents too. Yeah, I'm just thinking about how screwed up our lives are. I smiled. Even in most difficult situations, Styles was able to crack a joke. Sort of. The bell on the door of the animal clinic rang, announcing Scott's arrival. Kids, are you sure you want to do this? The three of them nodded and the rest of us got to work, filling the bathtubs with water. Ice and mistletoe. Alan separated the trio, making sure their emotional tethers knew what to do. Needless is to say that some people were surprised, Lydia and Scott, especially. After brief goodbyes, Allison, Styles and Scott, while holding their parents' belongings, held their breath and dove under the icy water. Lydia and Isaac sat on a corner of the room, after a while, next to me. Do you think they'll be okay? I mean, is this normal? The clinic was closed for the day, to make sure that no one or anything interrupted us. In the old times, when this ritual was performed, some people would be submerged for days. I honestly hope this wasn't the case because quite frankly we didn't have the time. Those three were only going to come back when the Neemton showed them what they needed. Who knew how long that would take? I wouldn't tell them that though, so instead I made up a little white lie. I'm sure they will be, after all they're not your average teenagers. I smiled to look a little more convincing, even though I was anything but that. I hope so, said Lydia, while resting her head on my shoulder. I don't want to lose them. They were the only ones that believed me when everyone else thought I was crazy. Silence took over, making us stay in the same position for what seemed like a few hours. It was already dark, when we heard a loud coughing noise coming from the bathtubs. Finally, grabbing several towels, we called Alan and reached our friends. We know where it is. It was so obvious, we must have passed it at least a dozen times. Allison was the one to break the silence between the rest of us, probably due to the freaked out looks from Isaac and Lydia. What, you guys were out for 16 hours? They looked at each other. Because I'm sure that to them it only seemed like minutes. The eclipse will happen in a few hours. It's now or never, intervened Alan. Just then, Ethan barged in, asking for Lydia's help. Apparently, Deucalion had asked Callie and Aiden to kill Darach. Everyone started to panic. This was really happening. Okay, calm down everyone. I usually didn't do this, but someone had to take the reins right now. Lydia, you go with Ethan to stop them and try to warn Darach. Allison, Isaac and Styles, go find your parents. Scott will meet Deucalion just like it was arranged. Is that okay with everyone? What about you? Asked Isaac. I'll be taking care of Deucalion. If Jennifer fails, I'll make sure that son of a bitch dies. Please don't do anything stupid. I smiled and hugged Ethan. I can't promise that, Snuggles. Everyone started exiting the clinic. Allison approached me however. You'd be a great hunter. Good luck. We hugged and she left. She reminded me of Angela in some ways. I sighed. And started collecting a couple of herbs and mixing them. You're doing great. I'm proud of you. Thanks Alan. I just hope for everyone's sake that this works. An hour later, a storm was raging outside and I knew it was time to go. Grabbing a vial with the mixture of herbs I had just made, I left to Darach's loft. Styles had already texted me, informing that they had found the Neemton. I was PPY for them even though things were far from over. At the entrance of the loft I could see signs of a huge fight. I entered, not expecting to find what I did. Aiden and Ethan were laying on top of each other unconscious. Lydia was sobbing. Cora had an unreadable expression. Callie was dead, impaled by thousands of glass shards, and on the middle of it all was none other than Jennifer. What the hell happened? They're dead. Both of them. I went to check the twins' pulse when Cora mouthed something. They're still alive. Thank God. Grabbing Lydia's shoulder, I talked to her. Lydia, I know you're hurting. But you and Cora need to get out of here. Okay, take them to the clinic or something. We'll deal with it later. She nodded, clearly not hearing half of what I just said. She was that distraught. Thankfully Cora understood and started to help the twins. Jennifer stepped forward but I stopped her. If you know what's good for you, you'll stay right there. Why do you care? They're Deucalion's slaves. I slapped her. I couldn't help it. Don't talk about them, like you knew them all your life because you didn't. I glared at her, which I rarely did, and she seemed to flinch. Aiden always said I had a mean glare. I'll help you get rid of Deucalion, but if you try anything I'll kill you, Darach or not. Got it. Jennifer gave a small smile and led the way. We eventually met Darach on a cliff, and when we received a video from Scott the three of us walked to a distillery on the outskirts of town. You should leave, Darach whispered to me. Like hell. I'm the backup plan in case she fails. I said, pointing to the woman who used to be my English teacher. And what exactly are you going to do? It's none of your business. As they entered, I found a hiding spot, praying that Deucalion wouldn't recognize my scent. The fight was gruesome. The boys were seriously hurt, and when the eclipse happened Jennifer healed Deucalion instead of killing him. As soon as it was over, she pulled a mountain ash barrier around her. However, Scott broke it with much effort, finally becoming the true alpha he was meant to be. Deucalion was not so merciful like the Darach had been, so taking advantage of Jennifer's vulnerability he slashed her throat. This was my chance to bring us some peace forever. I am the demon wolf. Nothing can kill me. I walked quietly behind the four of them, dipping a dagger into the herb mixture I had done earlier and stabbed Deucalion in the heart. That's where you're wrong, buddy. Not even the demon wolf is immune to mistletoe. He screamed and started bleeding out. Enjoy the ride to hell. When his body fell to the ground, I sighed in relief. I wouldn't have to fear for my life again. Well, for now, at least. Looking at the Darach, I noticed that she was bleeding out as well. Take me to the Neemton, she was whispering. Darach carried her, and following Scott's instructions we found the reserve where the huge tree stump was located. I helped her get there. I knew what she was doing. As she placed her hands on the tree, she was giving back the powers of the sacrifices made. Everyone was watching us with curious eyes, especially the parents. As soon as she died, I started to walk away until an energy blast hit me. After that everything was black. I was cold, freezing, actually. My whole body was numb and all I could hear was someone whimpering. Deep, heartbreaking sobs. The air around me was heavy and I could barely see anything. Hello, where were the others? She remembered seeing her friends before she blacked out and now none of them could be seen, so where the hell was she? Bella, is that you? It was Jennifer's voice. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this happen to you, I'm sorry. I was confused. Jennifer was alive. Searching Aru, I eventually found the green-eyed woman. She was still sobbing like there was no tomorrow. What are you talking about? I feel fine. The former English teacher sobbed even harder. You're dead, Bella. I'm sorry. I was dead. That explained the numbness, sort of, but why me? Why had the Neemton killed me? Why? Do you know why I'm dead? Did I do something wrong? You did everything you were supposed to. Just like Jennifer, said a voice that I had never heard before. Out of the fog a silhouette could be seen. It was a teenage girl who looked no older than 16. I'm glad to finally meet you, Bella. Though I'm sorry it had to be this way. The girl had long, wavy brown hair and eyes that seemed to be a dark brownish green. I'm Paige. Wow, never in a million years I imagined meeting Darach's ex-girlfriend, but then again. I never thought I would die at 18 either. The girl smiled and looked at Jennifer. Don't worry, she's not dead because of you. She was supposed to be here. Like I am. Ouch. That comment actually hurt. You have to go, Jennifer. After everything you went through you deserve some peace. Go where? Heaven or maybe hell? If that's where she would go then I was pretty sure that this was limbo. What about Bella? Doesn't she deserve some peace too? I gave Jennifer a small smile. At least she cared a bit about my fate. Not yet. She still has a lot to do. The former Darach nodded and got up. Her bodily form, if that's what it was, disappeared into the heavy fog. My brain was on overdrive. I had so many questions. Why I am dead? Do you know why the Neemton killed me? It was your destiny or at least part of it. Come on, there are a few things that you need to know before you go back. Grabbing my hand, Paige pulled me into the middle of the heavy fog. That's when I finally saw everyone. As I fell unconscious, Darach cradled me in his arms, trying to wake me up. That was until he realized that I had no pulse. That's when all hell broke loose. Allison and Melissa were crying. The sheriff and Mr. Argent weren't moving. Styles and Scott were hugging each other while Darach was still holding onto my body for dear life. It was nice to know, in a way, that even though I had known these people for such a short time they cared for me. Is this happening right now? Paige looked at me in a sympathetic way. No, all of this happened a couple of days ago. What? How was that possible? Time here goes by a lot slower than in the regular plane. The scene in front of me dissolved. Darach was carrying me to the clinic. As soon as Aiden saw my core, he started punching the nearest wall while Lydia was being comforted by Ethan and Cora. If all of this happened days ago, why am I only seeing this now? I mean, where was I paused because I had no idea what word to use. What was I, anyway? A ghost? I know it's confusing. Trust me, when I died, I was lost for a while until I found the Neemton again. My guess is that your spirit has been wandering around just like mine was. Until I found you, that is. I had to find you so that you were able to go back knowing what's going to happen to you. What's exactly going to happen to me? As soon as you get back, you will be bound to the Neemton forever. It's a like reward. Like I said to Jennifer, you still have a lot to do in the world of the living, and the Neemton is going to help you. I had never heard of something like this before. I still had a lot of questions, but decided to let Paige talk without interruptions. From now on, you are a necromancer, which means that you will have a very deep connection to the world of the dead, especially to this place. You'll be able to see and hear people that are stuck here, myself included. So I'm going to be like a dead version of a banshee. She smiled. Paige looked really young when she did that, like a carefree teenager, which is what she should have been all along. Actually, your powers will be stronger than Lydia's, who you have to help, by the way. She needs to develop her powers, otherwise she can be tricked in the future. That would be easy to do. Hopefully. The scenario in front of me shifted again. This time it was showing me a cemetery. I was seeing my own funeral. Yikes. If my parents knew about this, they would find a way to bring me back from the dead just to give me a piece of their mind. As my funeral continued, I observed everyone's expressions. most of the people present were crying, others seemed like they were frozen. I'm sorry you have to watch this, but I thought you should see it. It's okay. I think I already accepted it. But it's nice to know that I will be able to be back. Suddenly the fog started to dissipate. We don't have much time. You also need to know that you have to keep the Neemton safe. If that tree is destroyed, you will die, permanently. Be careful with your emotions. You'll have all of Jennifer's powers, so try to control them, okay? This doesn't happen very often, does it? Why me? Because you're an emissary and a very good one if I say so myself. She paused. Can you tell Darach something for me? I nodded. Paige whispered in my ear and hugged me as soon as she was done. I will be guiding you. So you will see me again very soon. Good luck. The girl disappeared and I opened my eyes a few seconds later. Gasping for breath, I noticed I was still in my coffin, which meant that I had to dig my way out. It took me a while, but I managed to get out. As soon as I reached the surface, I took a long and deep breath. I was never going to take being alive for granted again. The soil surrounding my grave regenerated, burying my tombstone, making it seem like it was never there. Cool. I walked out of the cemetery, thinking where would I go? Deciding to go to one of my friend's house, I walked even faster. The closest one belonged to Styles. When I arrived, the house was dark, however I hoped that he was home. The window was open, and since there was a tree that led to a bedroom, I started to climb, praying that I wouldn't fall and break my neck in the process. This was exciting. If Charlie or even Edward saw me doing this, they would, for sure, have heart attacks. Entering the bedroom, I could hear Styles snoring. Jesus, he was such a heavy sleeper. Styles, I said while shaking him. Go away, Dad, he whispered, making me roll my eyes. Styles, the boy woke up startled and started screaming when he saw me. Why are you haunting me? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not haunting you. He looked skeptical. I mean it, the Neemton brought me back. Really? Awed at his more than expected question. He seemed to have calmed down a bit. Styles leaned closer to me and poked my shoulder slowly with his fingers. Dude, what are you doing? I'm just making that you're not a ghost or a hallucination. You were dead for a week after all. It had been that long. When I was in limbo, it felt like minutes. It's really me, I swear. He hugged me, which I returned without hesitation. Can I stay here? I'll talk with everyone tomorrow, but right now, I really need a shower. Suit yourself. And Bella, he said, making me turn around. It's nice to have you back. I smiled and let him go back to sleep while preparing myself for a nice shower. The next morning, I was having a cup of coffee when Styles walked down the stairs. God, this is so weird, but it's a good weird. He grabbed a glass and filled it with milk. I already texted everyone, including the parents. We'll meet them in an hour. Okay, and thank you. It was nearly 10 o'clock in the morning when Styles drove us to the woods. I could hear everyone. This better be important, Stilinski. We have a plane to catch. I decided to save Styles from Cora's bitchiness and walked out of the car, making everyone gasp. Bella, everyone looked shocked to say the least. Lydia gave me the tightest hug I had ever received. Allison, Melissa and Cora soon joined in. Who the hell are you? Of course Aiden would question my presence. It's me, Smoochie. He looked angry and ready to murder me. He needed proof, so I gave it to him. You once punched your brother because your first girlfriend, whose nickname was Candy, had a crush on Ethan. He smirked and hugged me, being closely followed by Ethan. It is you. Of course it's me, dumbass. Who else could it be? The first evil. I took turns hugging everyone else. But when it was Darach's turn, he kissed me instead. I missed that. We were interrupted when someone cleared their throat. How are you back? Not that it's a bad thing. It's just weird. I know, Scott. It's a long story, though. Everyone motioned for me to continue. Here we go. I explained it the best that I could. That I had woken up in limbo, lost, and Paige guided me, showing me everything that had happened in the last couple of days. I told them that from now on I was bound to the Neemton and was a necromancer, which seemed to make Lydia happy, probably because she wouldn't be the only one hearing the dead anymore. No way. I thought necromancers were legends, said Cora. They are extremely rare. You're one lucky girl, Isabella, intervened Alan. I shrugged. My brain was still overflowing with questions. Wait, this is not going to be like Ghost Whisperer, is it? Am I going to have to run from murderous ghosts? Because I'm so not up for that. I said, not directing the question to anyone in particular. I hope not, answered Paige's bell-like voice from behind me, making me turn around. Are you seeing a ghost right now? asked Isaac, making me nod. It's just Paige. She's my spiritual guide, I guess. She's here. Yeah, she doesn't blame you, you know. She's sorry she didn't tell you about the sacrifice, and don't worry, she is fine, well, as fine as someone can be on limbo. Darach smiled and placed his arm around my shoulder, bringing my body closer to his. Enough with the supernatural drama. This deserves a celebration, yelled Ethan, just like he had suggested. All of us said goodbye to Melissa, Sheriff Stilinski and Mr. Argent, went to Darach's loft and partied all day long. Darach and I were inseparable, Aiden's words, not mine. I almost lost you again. Try not to get yourself killed anytime soon, Swan. I'll try, Hale. We kissed for what seemed like forever. It was good to be home. I was walking around a huge field, again. It was still dark, and the cold air was hitting my body, making me shiver. I kept walking, just like I always did. Ring around the rosy, a pocket full of posies, ashes, we all fall down. I was tensing up. Why couldn't I wake up? I knew what was going to happen next. Isabella, he is coming for you, said the Asian little girl for what seemed to be the 1000th time in weeks. Who the hell is he? Why don't you tell me? The girl shrugged her shoulders, and kept dancing around the field while picking purple flowers that appeared out of nowhere. What kind of warning is this? Seriously, this is not freaking funny. How can I be prepared if won't tell me anything useful? I yelled, making the little girl look at me. He is coming, Isabella, she said in a sing-song voice that was quickly turning very creepy. My eyes shot open. I was back in Darach's loft. After Cora left for South America, Darach and I started a living arrangement of sorts. Sometimes I slept in his loft and sometimes he was the one that would sleep in my apartment. I was sweating. This dream had been bothering me for weeks, ever since I came back from the dead to be exact. Every time I tried asking that girl for information, he would start singing and saying the same thing over and over again, until I woke up, that is. Same dream again. I nodded. I couldn't understand it, regardless of how hard I tried. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you up. It's okay. He kissed my forehead, making me calm down a bit. This dream was really freaking me out. Try to get some sleep. It's 3 a.m. I lifted the covers and started walking around, looking for my gym clothes. I don't think I can. I'm going for a run. See you in a few hours. Darach nodded. I kissed him goodbye and left the loft. When I started having those dreams, I found out that running through the woods for a while helped me. A few days after I came back from the dead, I started noticing slight changes in my body. I was physically stronger, could run faster, and didn't get tired as easily, but regardless of all that, I still hated PE classes. Even though it was still dark outside, I felt at home. Maybe it was because I was a druid, or maybe it was because of the bond I had with the Neemton. Either way, it didn't matter. I kept running until dawn. That was when I chose to slow down. Taking out my phone from my jacket, I decided to send a video to my parents. It had been a long time since I had seen them. Hi, Mom and Dad. I just wanted to let you know that everyone is fine. Even though my life is a lot different right now, I'm still doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm taking care of my family, which just happens to be a lot bigger. I found Darach again, yes Mom, that Darach, and we are working things out. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I love and miss you. I sent the video and collapsed on the moist forest floor. You are really close with your parents, aren't you? I envy that. I looked to my left and there was Paige, sitting with her knees up to her stomach. Why, my parents, we used to talk about everything and were really close. I was an only child, but everything changed when the druids explained to them what my destiny was. I lost my family. I'm really sorry. Maybe it doesn't mean much to you, but I consider you a part of my family, Paige. The teenager smiled. The first warm rays of sunshine were just peeking through the branches, meaning that it was time to leave. I had school in an hour. Thank you. Be careful, Peter is with Darach. I just don't trust him. Rumors about Peter Hale was something that the supernatural world was full of. From what I had heard over the years, he was a master manipulator and not to mention a selfish person. Even Lydia had warned me about him. I don't think anyone does. I ran back to the loft, and just like Paige had warned me, another voice could be heard from the outside. While I entered, the noise stopped. 2 sets of eyes were staring at me. The blue ones, however, freaked me out to no end. You must be Isabella, Darach's not-so-dead mate. After hearing his voice, the shivers that I already had got worse. I felt like throwing up. And you must be Peter, Darach's totally creepy uncle. Darach was smirking and so was his creeper of a relative. I like her. She's got spunk. Rolling my eyes, I walked out of the living room and took a much-needed shower. When I got out, I saw a text from Lydia, who decided to drive me to school. Dressing myself in a red sleeveless tank top, dark jeans and black combat boots, I left for school. "What's wrong?" asked the Banshee as soon as I entered her car. "Is it that obvious?" She gave me a, "Duh, look. I haven't been sleeping very well. Is it because of the coffin thing? We didn't want to bury you but none of us could place your body in a ditch either." I smiled. I wish it was that, but instead my dreams are being haunted by creepy little girls who like riddles and nursery rhymes. Lydia obviously was analyzing everything I had just told her. She wasn't called a genius for nothing. "Maybe we should talk to Dr. Deaton. That is not normal." "Maybe. How is everyone else?" "According to the information we had about the ritual, they should be having nightmares or hallucinations by now." "I don't know, but we will find out soon enough." The redhead parked her car in her usual spot at the school's parking lot, where Scott, Allison, Styles and Isaac were already waiting for us. Hopefully, I was the only one going crazy. As soon as my eyes fell on Allison, Scott and Styles, I knew there was something wrong. They looked extremely tired and jumpy, like they were expecting something or someone to appear in front of them. Their behavior was exactly like mine after those nightmares. "Is everything okay?" My newfound friends nodded in response. I knew they were hiding something, but I decided not to push them. I could only hope they would tell me when they were ready. "There's no need for lying, you know," said Lydia, giving a small smile to the trio. "We're not stupid. We all know you should be feeling the effects of the ritual by now." She opened the door of the school and got in, making the rest of us follow her. A few people glanced our way, while Lydia walked gracefully through the crowded hallway. "How do you know that?" She turned around. "It's me you're talking about, McCall. Besides the signs or all the fearful expressions on your faces, the nervousness, it's not that hard to figure it out. If it's that obvious, how can we deal with it? Soon our parents are going to realize that something is wrong with us." I was expecting them to tell their parents, so Allison's statement surprised me, but I also understood why none of them had confessed what they had done. I was pretty sure that Melissa, Mr. Argent and the sheriff wouldn't like to hear that their children had probably given up their mental health for an unknown period of time, in order to find them. "We'll find a way to deal with it, I promise. I'm helping Lydia with her powers, so I'm going to do the same thing for you three." Allison and Scott smiled in appreciation, while Styles remained serious. "What she said, but in the meantime I'm going to enjoy this. After all, it's not every day that you find out that there are other crazy people in this town." She was joking, of course, and yet she looked somewhat serious. Lydia K.N. Ew, how it was like to lose your grasp in reality, since she had gone from popular girl to an outsider in seconds. "We're not crazy, are we?" mumbled Scott. "She's only joking. And so what if we are? Being normal is overrated, anyway," I said, trying to make them feel better. The truth was that regardless of the state of our sanity, none of us would ever be the same again. Some of us were supernatural creatures who were bound to a different world forever, and those who weren't had seen too much already. Allison walked with Lydia and Isaac while I went with Scott and Styles, since we had history together. We sat down, ignoring the small chat that was going around. I looked around the room, slightly bored, and noticed a teenage boy looking directly at me. He was around my age, with light blonde hair. He kept staring for a couple more minutes until he calmly left the classroom. Apparently Scott noticed my expression and wandering eyes, because he questioned me. "Another ghost?" "Yeah, I'm still getting used to that." Before we could say anything else, an Asian-looking man entered the classroom and introduced himself as our teacher. He also introduced his daughter, who was extremely embarrassed. The rest of the morning went by with me trying to keep an eye out for Scott, Allison and Styles. Eventually it was time for lunch and Lydia texted me to say we were having lunch outside. I sat down next to Scott, who was slightly pale. After a couple of minutes he finally spoke. I almost shifted in the middle of the hallway. "Nothing happened, right?" asked Isaac, slightly worried. The alpha shook his head and Styles spoke next. "Bella, you're the druid here. Do you know what we can do? These hallucinations are becoming way too real." "Exactly," completed Allison. "I practically can't even distinguish my surroundings anymore." My friends looked desperate. Not that I blamed them. Maybe Lydia was right. "You guys are really crazy. Can you try to be helpful, please?" muttered Styles. AC and Styles kept bantering back and forth, until I interrupted them. Every person that is a part of that ritual reacts differently, I'm not going to lie. Some lose their grasp on reality forever. They looked at me with wide eyes. The effects of the sacrifice are mainly psychological, so maybe there is a way to reverse it. I'll talk to Alan about it. Are you saying that every single person that has died and was resurrected because of the ritual, came back slightly insane? Asked Scott. I'm positive a few of them did, Scott. Our conversation was interrupted by the new girl in our history class. She claimed to have overheard us. Needless is to say that she was a terrible liar. Lydia didn't seem to like her very much. Poor girl, she was getting a hard glare, even more so when Scott introduced her to the group. Kira started talking about Bardo and its different stages, which was apparently the state that Allison, Scott, Styles and I were in. She kept mumbling about visits from peace. Full deities or demons, to which Styles replied, demons, why not? If there are different stages of progression, what's the last one? Death. You die, said Kira while looking directly at Allison. Despite the girl's happy tone, my heart skipped a beat. While we all looked shocked, the ghost that I had seen earlier in the classroom appeared again. He kept glancing between Kira and Allison and Mackin. A few gestures that belonged to sign language. One of them meant death and the other one, well, I had no idea what it was. Wait, I whispered, before the ghost disappeared. Hopefully Kira was already gone. A ghost again. I nodded at Scott. The school is haunted. Isaac glanced around, probably trying to find anything that would support his theory. I don't think so. Maybe Kira is the reason the ghost showed up in the first place. Scott frowned at what I had just said, clearly worried. I think he has a crush on her. After all, they did share a cute moment in class. What? Do you think she's in trouble? Maybe she is the trouble, muttered Styles, who received a glare from Scott and a smile from Lydia. Oh come on, Scott. Don't look at me like that. You know I'm right. Usually when new people come to Beacon Hills, they become the source of our problems. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Styles has a point. Remember Jennifer or the twins? Okay, I get it. I'll be careful around her. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. Lydia, Allison and I had our free period right now. While the boys went back into the building, we walked to Lydia's car. Can we get ice cream? She asked. This conversation about Scott's new girlfriend and her fascination with our possible deaths is depressing me. Allison laughed. You two are so alike, it scares me sometimes. Thanks, said Lydia and I at the same time. She started driving and singing, making us forget about our problems for a little while. The girls and I kept driving around and eating ice cream for a while, until Lydia decided to make a stop in the woods. We had stopped joking and laughing a couple of minutes ago, making the air around us heavy. Lydia glanced at me and sighed. She knew how badly her best friend was feeling. Because according to the redhead, they had become close ever since the brunette had arrived in Beacon Hills. She is my first real friend, said the Banshee to me once. She actually cares about me. Allison is not like those fake bitches who only want to be in the top of the school's food chain. She was in love with Scott, for God's sake. I smiled at that memory. Allison was actually a like Angela now that I thought about it, even though the second one was not a hunter. Or at least I think she wasn't. I'm sorry, Allison said. The two of us were slightly confused. What was she apologizing for? I'm a terrible company right now. I should be home trying to. Allison looked on the verge of tears, which was something I wasn't used to. She always looked so composed, so strong. It broke my heart to see someone that I called my friend break like that. Lydia and I hugged her at the same time. It's okay, Allison, we are here to help you. She wiped the tears that had fallen and straightened herself in an attempt to let go of the fear I guessed she was feeling. Thanks, Bella, I appreciate that. I really do, but I don't think that you can do much for me. I'm a mess and, she paused and took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking. It was disturbing how much this girl had to fight just to stay afloat. You should have seen me this morning. I can't even hold a brush without shaking. My aim is often these hallucinations about my dead aunt. They are making me feel weak, interrupted Lydia, making our friend nod. I feel like I'm not really myself anymore. Not since my mom died. Allison, I know that this is hard for you, but you and the boys will get through this. Exactly. I would rather make out with Coach Finstock than let you give up, Missy. Allison gave a small chuckle. Finally, we were making her smile. Who needs ice cream when I have you too? Questioned the hunter. Sorry to disappoint you, but Bella and I still need our daily fix of sugar. The three of us kept walking around in the forest. We still had a few more minutes to kill before we needed to get back to school. Somehow the twins became the next topic of our conversation. The Banshee expose. Her disappointment in what her relationship with Aiden had become in the last couple of days. Apparently, she hadn't seen her boyfriend in weeks. He had only sent her a few texts saying that he was okay. Which in every girl's dictionary was far from all right. Don't take that personally, I said. Ethan and Aiden always isolate themselves when something big happens and they struggle to accept it. It's their thing. They will come around eventually. I was expecting something like this to happen, actually. The boys had gone from mighty alphas to powerless omegas in hours, and considering all of the abuse they had suffered when they were teenagers, this was bound to be extremely hard for them. I hope you're right. I just wish he would understand that I'm here for him no matter what. Allison placed her arm around Lydia's shoulder. I'm sure he knows that, lies. He probably just needs some time to come to terms with everything that happened. I nodded in agreement. Suddenly I heard footsteps a few meters away. Since I had come back, my senses were a lot sharper. I turned around, trying to see something or someone. What? My two friends asked. Someone is coming. I mumbled and braced myself to face a werewolf or another shapeshifter. Before I could think of what I would do in case the three of us were attacked, my body was thrown to the ground with tremendous force. Aiden, I heard someone yell. I groaned in pain, however I could feel my body healing already. Thanks to the Neemton, the small wounds I had started to close. It felt like my skin was gluing itself together, which was totally freaky. I think my skull just cracked. Grabbing my head, I tried to get up. Don't be such a drama queen, Isabella. You're not even bleeding. I glared at him even though he was clearly unafraid. That annoying know-it-all smirk was once again plastered on his face. Says the guy who likes to run over innocent bystanders in the middle of the freaking woods. I heard him mumble something like, yeah, right. Under his breath, turning to Lydia, he hugged her fiercely and kissed her. Why didn't you call? I was worried, Aiden. She asked. I tried, I swear. Ethan is in such a funk lately that he almost rips my head off every time I try to use my phone to call you. I think he's scared I'll call Danny or something. What had I missed? Ethan moping around. That didn't sound like him at all. Why would you call Danny? What's going on? The three of them exchanged slightly guilty looks. I was expecting Aiden to be the one that answered me, but Allison was the one that spoke. Danny and Ethan broke up. I think. What? Why would he do that? I hollered. That had to be the most stupid thing that my surrogate brother has ever done, but knowing Ethan, he probably gave this a lot of thought before actually deciding on anything. Still, he was going to get an earful from me. As far as I knew, Ethan was completely happy with Danny, so what had gone wrong? Beats me. I tried asking him, but he just growls at me. He said with a dismissive tone. The werewolf looked at us and raised an eyebrow. Shouldn't you three be in school? Free period, exclaimed Lydia while still hugging Aiden. Which is about to end anyway. She tossed the keys to her car to us, saying that she wanted to make up for the lost time and spend a couple more minutes with her mate. Totally understandable. The drive back to school was really quick. I hugged Aiden before I went to my next class, though. Please be careful. This isolation thing has to stop. The sooner both of you belong to a pack, the better it will be for everyone. I took a deep breath. Please talk to Snuggles or I will drag his ass back to school. Aiden laughed. Will do. I nodded and walked towards my locker. Scott and Styles were already waiting there for me. Thank God you're here. How would you feel about going on a quest with us after school? Said Styles so fast, I struggled to understand him. Ooh, a quest. Sounds important. What is it? The sheriff is checking out all his old cases to see if he missed anything, due to not knowing of the supernatural activities going on in this town. Are you in? I nodded and high-fived both of them. Bring it on, boys. Okay, what's the 411? I asked while climbing into the passenger seat of Styles's Jeep. The girl's name is Malia Tate. Apparently her family died in a car crash 8 years ago. But her body was never found. Her dad is the only member of the family that is still alive. That could be supernatural related for sure, but it also could be just another freak accident. Just because Beacon Hills was in fact a magnet for supernatural occurrences, did not mean that perfectly random accidents didn't happen. I had already texted Darach saying that I would be slightly late for dinner. Hopefully he wouldn't be upset. Ever since we got back together we had a random day of the week dedicated to us. Mostly we had dinner and watched movies, but I loved it anyway regardless of how simple it seemed. There was no Peter, which meant that I didn't have to fight the urge to punch him in the face every time he spoke. It was the highlight of my week, really. Right, so what makes you guys think that it might be supernatural related? It could be just another unfortunate accident. Stiles frowned while keeping a tight grip on the steering wheel. Scott thought that too, until my dad found out that there was a full moon that night. Ah, now I understood their determination to know what happened that night. We kept driving towards the animal clinic. Street. Isles said that his dad and Scott were already there, trying to come up with a plan. I also noticed that Stiles seemed completely focused to reach the bottom of this case, which for him, sometimes, was extremely hard. If you don't mind me asking, why do you want to find out what happened to Malia this much? Not that it's a bad thing. It's great actually, but it's freaky, huh? I nodded because I couldn't find a better word to describe it. I honestly don't know. I saw her picture this morning in the middle of my dad's stuff and I felt a tug on my stomach like I needed to find her or something. Or at least find out if she's dead or alive. Is this normal? As far as I knew, it wasn't. Unless they were. I agree with you. Maybe this is destiny's way of getting them together, who knows? Said a voice from the backseat. You think so? I said while turning my head towards Paige. Stiles raised an eyebrow. Oops, sorry. Paige is here. Hi Paige. He said. Yeah, I do. It explains the way he feels, just don't tell him anything yet. It might be better if he and Malia deal with it themselves, besides we're not sure that what I'm saying is even true. Said the brunette with a smile. Okay, don't worry about it, I said. It was the only I could answer her without letting Stiles know that I was hiding something. She says hi. What else did she say? She will try to help us, though I'm not sure how. It was a little white lie. I know, but I couldn't think of anything else to say. Our conversation ended that way because we reached our destination. There was an eerie atmosphere in the air. Something big was going to happen. I could feel it in my bones. Voices could be heard from where I was standing. Obviously whatever plan they had been working on was not ready yet. We're here, said Stiles, making the two adults and Scott look in our direction. The sheriff gave us a small smile. It was obvious that he knew he needed help to solve whatever was left of this case, but he didn't want to involve us at the same time. Typical parental issues. Hello kids. Sorry to involve you in this, Bella, but the boys thought you could help too. It's alright, Sheriff. I would be angry if they didn't tell me anything. I'm an emissary after all. Or at least I was one, before I died. Their expressions hardened when I mentioned my death. A chuckle was heard, however, after a few seconds. Yo, you druids take this guiding and balancing the world issue really seriously, don't you? Muttered Stiles. Yes, answered Alan and I at the same time. Over the next few minutes we finally came up with a semi-good plan. The sheriff would talk with Mr. Tate to explain to him what was happening or would happen if the case was reopened, and Scott, Stiles and I would go around the back so that the newly earned alpha could try to catch some scent. Easy enough. As of now everything was going according to our plan. Scott was sniffing around several dolls but, so far nothing. Did you get a scent yet? Asked Stiles, while searching for other objects and giving them to his best friend. Not really. The only scent around here is of a dog. It's super intense. A dog? A really nasty growl was heard behind us, coming from a huge and, dare I say, ugly black dog. Hi puppy, cooed Scott's best friend, before mumbling back to Scott. Get rid of it. Me. Yes, you dumbass. Do something. Be the alpha. See. NCE. Scott looked completely clueless about what he should do. I decided to step in and got closer to the dog. Looking straight into his eyes, I told him to go away. He yelped, lowered his head and left the room. How the hell did you do that? I shrugged in response. It's a necromancer's ability, I guess. Animals don't like my scent. It scares them. I glanced in Scott's direction. You should ask Darach to teach you his fierce glare thing. It can come in handy sometimes. Stiles gestured wildly with his hands. He has a fierce glare, all right. What do you mean, Bella? We left the Tates' home. Since there was no other helpful scent around, and waited for Stiles, Dad, in a nearby wooden area. Werewolves are superior to dogs and, well, wolves in general. Sometimes when those types of animals are around, all it takes for them to go away is a gesture of authority, like a glare. It's helpful when you can't growl. And Darach knows how to do it. Again, I wasn't sure he still remembered it, but it didn't hurt to ask. He used to do it a lot when he was younger, that's for sure. Just ask him. From wolf to wolf. Before the boys could ask anything else about my mate's wolfy gifts, Sheriff Stilinski was walking in our direction. Did you find anything, Scott? When the Alpha shook his head, the older man let out a sigh and told us to go home. For him there was nothing else he could do, but Styles, being Styles, had clearly a very different opinion. He kept yelling at his dad to make him change his mind, which didn't happen. We can't just give up. Styles, I want to help, I really do. But we don't even know where the car crash happened. There's nothing else we can. Our favorite sidekick reached into one of his pockets, taking his phone out. I can fix that, he said with a triumphant smile. I took a picture of Malia's file. The location of the car crash site must be in here somewhere. Scott and I exchanged glances. Styles, you're the sheriff's son. You should be setting the example and not doing illegal shit. I said, and I spoke from experience, because if Charlie found out that I had gone through his stuff, especially police stuff, I would be dead. Hey, I resent that. I am just trying to find out what happened to a girl who disappeared 8 years ago and who may or may not be running through these woods every full moon as a lycanthrope. Whether you two believe it or not, that makes me a great citizen. Fine, answered Scott while Styles punched the air in victory. We were really doing this. I just hoped for Styles' sake that we found Malia, because if we didn't he would be heartbroken. The Californian sky was already pitch black, and yet the three of us kept walking through the woods looking for Malia. At least that's what we hoped to be doing. My feet were starting to hurt badly, and I was pretty sure Styles was about to collapse too. Just let me check the map, Scott. I just want to make sure we're going in the right direction. The Alpha glared at his best friend, who gulped. I'm not stupid, Styles. I know how to read a map. Guys, I interrupted their little fight. The boys mumbled an apology and we kept walking. I had checked Scott's phone and he was right. At this time of night, the woods were vibrating with life. I absolutely loved it. As a druid, I always felt more at ease when surrounded by nature. It was a karmic thing. Howls could be heard at the distance. Styles jumped, gripped my arm while still bumping into Scott, who dropped his phone in a puddle of water. After apologizing to his best friend again, he started mumbling. God, I hate coyotes. They always sound like they're mauling some tiny and helpless animal. He stared at me. Aren't you scared? Not really. It's nature. To me, this is home. I said, shrugging. Styles raised an eyebrow. The druids are the weirdest people ever. Yeah, right. I could list at least another dozen things that were worse than the druids and their connection to nature. Peter Hale and his narcissism was one of them. The Cullens' obsession with me was another. The list went on and on. Eventually the three of us had to go down a hazardous path. While Scott did it with ease, Styles and I gripped each other tightly. The Alpha recovered his phone. It's still working. Scott paused. According to this, it should be right here. As the three of us turned a corner, we could see a large, battered, black car turned upside down. There were plenty of things inside, toys and even a few bags. They probably kept it here because it would be very expensive to tow it. Probably. Wow, I was speechless. It was one thing to hear about car accidents or accidents in general, but seeing actual proof of it was beyond intense. Styles walked closer to the car and crouched in front of it. I saw him grab something and I flinched when my brain realized what it was. A doll. A freaking doll. I hated dolls. When I was 10, my mom thought it would be funny to scare me on Halloween using dozens of dolls. Needless is to say that it wasn't fun at all. It was rather creepy actually. Every time I saw a doll after that I freaked out. It was so bad, sometimes I would have panic attacks. Imagine my grandmother's reaction after I opened her gifts every year. Put that thing away, Styles. Bella, you're scared of dolls, whispered Scott with a slight smirk. You talk with ghosts. I took a few steps back, away from it. So what, McCall? Ghosts are not half as creepy as that. Styles smirked, making me feel a lot more nervous. Ooh, check it out, Bella, he said, waving the doll closer to my face. He kept moving it, until he suddenly stopped. He was probably trying to imagine Malia with it or something. What happened next surprised us all. I'm hungry. It talked, as if a normal doll wasn't enough. Malia's favorite toy had to be a freaking talking doll. I screamed along with another person. I assumed it had been Styles. With a wave of my right hand, that trinket was sent against a tree a few feet away. I think I just had a minor heart attack. Scott's mouth was open and Styles did the same when he realized what happened. Did you just send that doll against a tree, with a wave of your hand? The pale boy asked. I guess. Quote, growls were heard again, though this time they seemed to be much closer to us. In fact, pair of blue steely eyes were staring right at us from a nearby bush. The eyes of a shapeshifter. I'm not seeing things, right? Pleaded Scott. Nope, Styles and I whispered at the same time. Just like that, Scott took off after whatever was watching us. Styles prepared himself to run after them. But I stopped him. We should stay here. We don't know what we are dealing with. The boy nodded slowly and we waited for a long time. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour and Scott still wasn't back. Why the hell isn't he back yet? I shrugged in response since there was nothing else I could say or do. I found her. Malia, I found her, yelled Scott after what seemed like forever. Styles did some happy dance, and even though I was happy for him, I also knew that there was something else. As I remembered the features from the bushes, I figured out she was a coyote. She's a coyote, isn't she? Scott managed to nod in response. What does that even mean, Bella? It means that we have to stop looking for Malia tonight. Coyotes are tricksters. If we pressure her we might end up dead before we have the chance to help her. But, Styles kept insisting. His insistence proved that mine and Paige's theory was possibly right. Malia and Styles were mates, and if they weren't, they would certainly have a very strong bond. She's right. Let's go, Styles. We'll find her again. The sheriff's son finally gave up. He placed something in his backpack and we walked towards the jeep. I sighed as I opened the door to my apartment. Darach was sitting comfortably on my couch watching TV. He looked up, however, when he heard me arrive and greeted me with a kiss that made feel happy despite everything that happened today. What a crappy day. I can tell. Your emotions are all over the place. Darach's hands were in my waist, rubbing soothing circles, making me relax a little. Do you wanna talk about it? Quote. Exhaling hard, I placed my head on his chest and focused on his heartbeat. Do I have to? He raised his eyebrow in a typical Hale fashion. Cora and Peter did the exact same gesture sometimes. It clearly meant, spit it out. Fine, hot shot. I'm stressed because Aiden and Ethan don't have a pack yet. There's a coyote on the loose and ghosts keep poppin'. Up mouthing weird messages that I can't decipher. I was glad to be helping them, but there was only so much stress someone can take. Right now, Darach was the only reason why I hadn't checked myself into an asylum yet. Don't take this the wrong way, but you need to stop stressing over things you can't control. Ethan and Aiden are adults, they will find a pack. You will figure out everything else when it's the right time. My head moved into a nod, while I still tried to relax. He narrowed his eyes and stared at me. The look was so intense, it felt like he was staring straight into my soul, which was exactly what he was doing. Being mated was not an easy task, especially when it involved non-shapeshifter people. There is something else. What is it? I bit my lip, trying to avoid his question. Not that it worked. Darach wrapped his arms tighter around me, just to make it clear that he wouldn't let me go anywhere. Oh, what the heck? I saw a freaking doll today. My mate tried, the keyword being tried, to keep a straight face but failed miserably. He laughed out loud, and even if I became slightly angry at him, his laugh was still the best thing I ever heard. I thought you were over your phobia of dolls. I scoffed. What are you talking about? I will never be over my fear of dolls. They're incredibly creepy. He threw me over his shoulder, making me giggle. Whatever you say, Swan. Whatever you say. You should have called us. Hollered Isaac, making some of us jump slightly. I, however, was miles away, mentally I mean. And before you ask what happened, let me tell you, Peter Hale. As the days pass, I am starting to realize that maybe I should have killed Peter instead of Deucalion. After all, the demon wolf had a reason to become obsessed with revenge and murder, but what exactly does Peter have other than an over-imaginative mind, too much free time on his hands, and a godlike complex? He's a power-hungry maniac, and I can't help but wonder what his next plan is since I caught him this morning. Let it go, wolf boy. What's done is done, right? Since I wasn't paying attention to the conversation, Styles made sure to wave a couple of fingers in front of my eyes, bringing me out of my trance. Sorry. What's wrong with you? You look like you're in La La Land. The entire group was staring at me, which made me twitch. If making me daydream about his ridiculous, power-focused plans was Peter's goal, he was succeeding. Was I overthinking the whole thing? I honestly hoped so, but my instincts were telling me otherwise. My mind started to drift again. Jesus, I couldn't stop thinking about it regardless of how much I tried, and trust me, I had tried a lot. I was walking around Darach's loft this morning looking for the rest of my stuff when I spotted Peter, touching what seemed to be my phone. What the hell was he doing? What are you doing? Is that my phone? He turned towards me and smirked. That however was not what made me angry, because let's face it. Peter always had a fury-inducing smirk etched on his face. His eyes, however, looked glassy and cold, well colder than they usually are anyway. Yes, I was just checking the time, dear niece-in-law. His statement made me frown. Did he seriously think I was that stupid? And you couldn't do that on your phone? I said while snatching the device from him. From now on I would have to use a password on it. You know, I thought that someone who is labeled in the supernatural world as an evil genius would think of better excuses. He smiled, and I have to admit, it's the scariest thing ever. My excuses are just as good as yours. Isabella, he said and started to walk away. God, how I despised him. I didn't even know what the hell he meant with that statement. Of one thing I was sure though, he was up to no good. My inner monologue was interrupted by Isaac's voice. You're doing it again. I'm not doing anything other than thinking, I said, shrugging. Isaac rolled his eyes and shifted closer to Allison. Then share it with us. Quote, Allison placed a hand on his shoulder. Werewolves could be so frustrating sometimes. I sighed. Should I tell them what happened? Nope, that was not an option. They had enough of Peter's drama in their lives already, besides this was my business anyway. Is Darach okay? Yeah, I was just thinking about Malia and other stuff. When had I become such a liar? We have to find a way to help her. Preferably without involving Scott. The Alpha looked confused. What? Why? Scott, coyotes don't like wolves. At least in the real world they don't. I'm guessing At his shapeshifters the principle is the same. The huntress said, and when she looked in my direction asking for confirmation, I nodded. What's the plan, then? If Scott has to stay out The tanned boy sighed. Guys, I don't care if we're coyotes and werewolves don't get along. I'm going to be a part of this. The boys and Allison raised their hands in surrender. Okay, then we will figure something out. Eventually, said Lydia in an attempt to clear the air. The group, myself included, nodded in agreement when suddenly I had an idea. Allison, can I talk to you for a second? Sure, the girl said with a smile. I prayed to the gods that my idea would work. I wasn't a religious person, but at least I hoped that a deity, pagan or not, would hear this request and give me a chance to at least find some peace of mind. The two of us walked towards her locker, while the rest of the group did their own thing. I would meet Scott and Styles in a few minutes for history. Is everything okay? I think so. She looked at me, making me smile. I was just wondering if you could teach me to use a couple of weapons. You know, just in case I lose my powers or something. There, I said it. I wanted learn to defend myself with something else other than my powers, and there was no one better to teach me than an Argent. Add the fact that she was my friend and I wanted to spend time with her, and it became perfect. I can do that. Allison closed her locker while the bell rang. Besides, would it be okay if you helped me with something too? She paused because her economics teacher had just entered the classroom. Crap, I have to go. See you later. Now I was curious. What could I help her with? She was an excellent student, a badass hunter, and as far as I knew she and Scott were okay despite the end of their relationship. So what was it? I walked towards my own classroom but stopped while witnessing the cutest and yet most embarrassing second meeting ever. Scott and Kira were talking and she was babbling non-stop. It became even funnier when her father gave her, and I quote, the research she had done for that boy she liked. I fought the urge to laugh out loud. Thank God, Renee nor Charlie had ever done that to me. I decided to show up when the two of them fell silent. Smirking and glancing at the huge amount of paper in his hands, I made my presence known. I didn't know you were into heavy reading, Scotty. Ha ha ha, you're hilarious. Once again, I smirked. I try. Glancing at Kira, I could see she was no longer smiling. Could she be jealous? Hi, I'm Bella. She shook my hand and smiled while looking directly at Scott. Can those two be more perfect for each other? Mr. Yukimura asked us to sit down and started the class. Halfway through it, he asked Styles to read. At the front, and even though he tried to find an excuse, the teacher insisted rather arrogantly, might I add, and our friend was left with no choice. Uh-oh, this is not going to end well. Scott whispered to me while scratching his chin. He still has trouble reading. Shit, just as I cursed, Styles began to have a panic attack. Kira's dad tried to calm him down, but Scott stepped in and took him to the closest empty space. Which I guess would be the locker rooms. I followed them soon after. Next time a student asks not to read, please leave it alone. The older man seemed a bit embarrassed. The boy was still panting when I arrived and locked the door behind me. What can we do to help? I asked. Last time this happened, Lydia kissed him. Muttered Scott. Well, if this situation happy. Ned on other circumstances I would have done it, but since I was mated that wasn't suitable. I can't do that. If I do, Darach will probably kick down that door and kill him. Sorry, Styles. He nodded in comprehension. I'm fine. Thanks for caring though. Styles washed his face and spoke to the two of us about his insecurities which were heightened after his resurrection. We stayed in the room F. At least another hour as a precaution when suddenly someone tried to open the door. Is someone in there? Please help. Kira, what's wrong? There's a coyote in the school. Could this day get any worse? Of course it could. Shame on me, for thinking that we could have a calm, supernatural free day in Beacon Hills. Right now, I was sure that our ragged breathings and wild beating hearts could be heard miles away. Which meant that Malia was hearing them perfectly and knew exactly where we were hiding. Kira kept mumbling stuff about wild animals and forests, but as usual things in Beacon Hills never happened like they should. Scott was trying to keep her from freaking out by saying soothing things. If we were in a different situation I would congratulate him, his ability to stay focused was incredible. I think I know why she's here, muttered Styles in a low tone to make sure that Kira didn't hear. I gave him a questioning look. I have her doll. I felt like punching him right now. So that's what he put in his backpack. I should have known. Why did you bring that fugly thing with you, Styles? I yelled. He shrugged his shoulders and sat down on the floor. He gave me an intense look and I swear I could see a bright, untamed spark in them. I don't know why I brought it with me. It just felt right to have something that belonged to her, you know. If my brain was ding itself with doubt hours before about Styles being Malia's mate, now things were clear as crystal to me. This boy was in love with a shapeshifter and he didn't know it yet. This calls for plan B then. He looked up with a frown. I marched up to Scott and pulled him away from Kira. Malia is coming, she's here for Styles. It's just a matter of time. How do you know that? He stole the doll from her den because apparently he was compelled to have something of hers. As soon as you can, get Kira out of here and Styles and I will deal with Malia, the doll lover. Scott nodded even though he was clearly worried. A loud crashing noise, that sounded a lot like glass breaking, was heard from the other side of the locker room. This was it. Hopefully the coyote girl wouldn't rip our throats out. Styles and I retracted to a corner and Scott and Kira to another. When the shapeshifter was seen, Scott knocked down a row of lockers creating a distraction. The true alpha started walking towards the door with his arms around the Japanese girl. I wondered why all of this was happening to us, right now. Weren't the ghosts and their non-stopping warnings of a catastrophe enough? Shaking my head, I tried to get rid of any thoughts since I had to focus on the task at hand which could possibly result in my death, though I doubt that would be permanent. My friend grabbed the doll and kept it at arm's length. Okay, Malia, here's your doll, see? You can have it back. And burn it while you're at it, I added in my mind. Her eyes kept shifting between Styles and I. Uh-oh, the coyote pounced, dragging Styles to the ground and kept him from getting up by placing her weight on top of him. Can you say awkward? I so did not want to witness this. I felt like I was intruding on a very intimate moment, which I totally was by the way. Holy shit, Malia, please don't kill me. As if sensing the boy's nervousness, Malia licked the right side of his face and bit him right where the neck connected with the shoulder. Please, don't let this take too long. Apparently I had said that out loud, because Malia growled at me, clearly understanding my impatience. I raised my hands in the universal gesture of surrender. Sorry, Malia. She turned her back on me, gazing at Styles for what seemed like forever and then left the same way she came in. He was still on the ground, slightly dazed and by the looks of it completely confused. What the hell, did she just bite me? I nodded at loss for words. Voices, plenty of them, could be heard from the outside. Styles was clutching the right side of his neck. I took his hand out and looked the bite over. Malia's perfect teeth were embedded on it. Stop touching it. You'll heal in a minute. Do you at least know the reason she did this? He asked while scratching the back of his neck. Yeah, I'll explain it to you, just let me text Darach first. And that was exactly what I did. When we left the locker rooms, there were police officers everywhere. We were questioned, one by one. First was Kira, then Scott and Styles, I was the last one. The deputy talking to me looked like he was around Charlie's age and I could swear he would sometimes smirk while I spoke. What a creeper. As if on cue, Darach showed up and even though he was immediately stopped by the police, I came to his rescue, so to speak. Who are you, young man? asked the deputy, who seemed more than ready to arrest him. He's my husband, I answered him with a smirk and walked away, holding tight on Darach's hand. It wasn't a lie and I was damn proud of it. The two of us were basically married. Just not the normal human way. As soon as we made sure that we were practically alone, I kissed him deeply. Breathe, Darach, I'm okay. Darach nuzzled my neck, something that all wolves did to their mates. You're telling me that a coyote who has been living like a true animal for 8 years, was in a closed space with 4 teenagers and none of them got harmed? He scoffed, and pulled me closer while still breathing in my scent. I can smell the blood, Bella. Where are you hurt? I mean it, hot shot, I'm not hurt. The blood you're smelling is from the bite. Darach interrupted me before I could finish what I was saying. Bite, did she bit you? Quote, I shook my head as answer. I managed to mumble that she had bitten Styles instead while I was trying to calm him down. Seriously, out of all the people she could do that with, she chose Styles. Don't be mean, hubby. Styles is a great kid and you know it. I texted you because I wanted your moral support, since I'm going to have to explain it to him. He raised an eyebrow, clearly not convinced with my answer. And because he might have questions that only a shapeshifter can answer. He kept his strong arms wrapped tightly around my waist. Please, I'll make it up to you. All right, I kissed his jaw in thanks, making him groan. The sounds were so sexy that all I wanted to do was jump him, something that he was well aware of judging by his smirk. Stupid werewolves and their heightened senses. Styles was so fidgety when we arrived. He was pacing non-stop. Relax, Styles, the bite is nothing bad. It just means that she marked you as her mate. The boy paled, and tensed. Mate, I'm her mate, just like you are Darach's. Yes. Running his hands through his hair, he asked, why me? No one knows exactly how the mates are chosen. Not even born wolves. It just happens. Get used to it, Styles, because there's no way around it. Once again the sheriff's son nodded and sat down, until we heard a loud booming voice from the corridor. I will kill that animal, even if it's the last thing I do. Panic rose within Styles and suddenly he seemed close to tears. It was heartbreaking to have our mate threatened Easy alley for a non-shapeshifter like him who didn't have any extra abilities to count on. And now what? I can't let him kill his own daughter. You're not alone in this, Styles. We will help you out, said Darach with sympathy. The three of us, along with Scott and Isaac, drove to the animal clinic, which had become our home base of sorts. Eventually, after an hour, Scott came up with the idea of using his howl as a way of forcing Malia to regain her human form, something we all agreed on. Needless is to say, that every single one of us were nervous, some even more than Styles. And sadly, I was one of them. Remember, this girl has been a coyote for 8 years. She's going to be hostile towards anyone. Keep your distance, warned Alan as we walked out the door. We nodded and got ready. Each and every single one of us had different parts to play. Allison and Isaac were responsible for distracting, and by that I mean knock out Mr. Tate. Lydia and Styles would stay in a neutral area, and if they happened to catch a glimpse of Malia they would warn the rest of us. Darach, Scott and I would track down Malia before someone else found her. Wait, we need clothes. Scott and Styles and even Isaac looked somewhat confused. For what? Are you planning on changing or something, Bella? Asked Scott. Darach snickered beside me. Honestly, McCall, how dense are you? Said Lydia while trying to hide the laughter in her voice. There for Malia, you do realize she's going to be naked, right? If the boys could dig a hole big enough to hide, they would have. Scott was looking at the ground and scratching his neck, and Styles and Isaac were blushing like crazy. We could stop by my place, it's the closest one. That's not necessary, Allie. I have something she can use. Lydia ran towards her car and opened her trunk. A few seconds later she came back with a huge, soft-looking, midnight blue bathrobe. Why do you keep a bathrobe in your car? After the whole Peter debacle, I decided to keep something in my car that I could cover myself with just in case he decided to pull something like that again. I grabbed the bathrobe and hugged it close to my body. How very Ravenclaw of you, I muttered, and she smiled. The 7 of us wished each other luck and walked into separate cars, but before we actually left I heard Isaac ask what a Ravenclaw was, making me laugh out loud. With Darach's speedy driving, we reached the woods in less than 20 minutes. The others are here already. Let's go. My mate and I nodded, and the 2 werewolves started sniffing around looking for Malia's scent. Minutes went by and there was absolutely no sight of the coyote. I huffed and Darach placed an arm around my shoulder. Come on, Malia, come out wherever you are. You do want to be with Styles again, don't you? I said to no one in particular. The two werewolves in front of me stopped abruptly and looked at me with a strange expression. Seriously, commented Darach with a raised eyebrow. I shrugged my shoulders and kept walking. It doesn't hurt to try. The worst thing that could happen is her not showing up. Quote, you're something else, Swan. Being the mature person that I am, I couldn't resist poking my tongue out at him. The three of us kept walking for another hour or so. No sounds were heard in the woods besides our footsteps. My frustration was starting to be visible, which only got worse when I tripped on a root hitting the ground with full force. Damn, Darach, being the gentleman he was, though in a less suffocating way when compared to Edward, helped me off the floor and checked for any injury I could have. We've been looking for hours. This is going nowhere since clearly Malia is not appearing anytime soon. Guys, said Scott, making us turn our heads in his direction. I think she just did. True to his word, a great brownish coyote was growling at us, making Darach move in front of me in a protective stance. After accessing the enemy, Malia quickly took off in a run and Scott followed her immediately, leaving the two of us to keep up. A huge ear-piercing roar was heard seconds later, and when we finally found the alpha again, he was supporting his weight against a tree while a very naked and beautiful Malia kept looking at her hands with confused eyes. Is she okay? Yeah, I think she is, Scott. Can you text Styles? My friend nodded and did as asked. In the meantime, I stepped forward under the watchful eye of my mate and approached the girl. Do you remember me? My name is Bella. She moved backwards, ready to pounce on me if she had to. Darach growled, but stopped once I assured him with a smile. I'm here to help you. As soon as I showed her Lydia's bathrobe, she grabbed and sniffed it. Where is she? Is she hurt? Yelled a very distressed Styles. His eyes looked frantic and he was frowning with worry. That changed however when he took in his mate's naked form. He blushed but continued to approach her nevertheless. A look of recognition passed the girl's face. Finally, now I could only hope that Malia would adapt well to the human world. Styles helped her with the bathrobe and hugged her. They look so peaceful, said Allison. I'm glad she's okay. We all are. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Isaac steal a glance at the huntress. After she came back from the sacrifice, the two of them seemed very close, both in a physical and emotional way, not that they weren't before. The newly mated duo walked towards us. I'm taking her home for a shower and stuff. I'll see you guys in a few hours. We all said our goodbyes, when a stab-like pain pierced me. Unable to contain the pain, I doubled over, coughing blood. Bella, I could feel every single part of my body burning. If this is what the transition into a vampire is like, then I would rather die a human death 1,000 times. Darach placed his hand in mine to try to take the pain away. My instincts were telling me that something was wrong, really wrong. I just didn't know what. Bella, the Neemton. You need to go to the Neemton. I nodded, silently thanking Paige for helping me again. Darach, I need to, I tried to say, but instead more blood came out. I know. He picked M.E. up bridal style and ran in the opposite direction of Styles, while ordering the others to go home. I kept placing my hands over my mouth to keep the blood from flowing out. If I kept losing blood like this, I would surely collapse. As soon as we reached the centuries-old stump, Darach placed me over it, and just like it happened the first time I was here, darkness took over. The gray fog surrounding me was familiar. So I already knew where I was. Limbo. The small Asian girl that appeared in my dreams or nightmares, was sitting beside me with a bouquet of lilies in her hands. What's wrong? Are you finally gonna tell me who's coming? Quote, you need to go back to where your journey started before he comes. You don't have much time left. I'm already here. It all started in Beacon Hills. She shook her head negatively. I could feel my brain trying to decipher this new information. Clearly, there was somewhere else I needed to be, but where? Where my journey started, Beacon Hills, was the obvious yet wrong answer. Finally it clicked. You're talking about Forks, aren't you? But why? The girl, whose name I still didn't know, smiled and clapped her hands while dropping the flowers on the ground. You'll figure it out. You're a smart girl, Isabella. Good luck. She started to shimmer away, but I called her back. Next time you want to talk to me, can you please do it in a less painful way? Coughing blood is not very pleasant. That was not me. After all, I'm just a messenger. Bella. Darach's voice rang in my ears over and over again, bringing me back to the world of the living. My head was pounding, and as far as I could tell, I was still lying on the Neemton. How long was I out? I said while trying to get up, which happened to be the worst idea I ever had. 2 hours. Give or take. Darach's gaze fell on my face. His face was in a frown and the muscles on his arms were tense. Are you okay? I managed a nod while he picked me up and gave me a hug that would bring Emma to shame. I couldn't help but smile. Darach and I never had an easy relationship, in fact we had been through hell and back just so we could be together again. When we first met we were barely even teenagers. Our mothers used to meet to deal with werewolf stuff, which meant that we got to see each other fairly often. When we finally understood what our bond meant, things got a lot more complicated. In between his loyalty to his family and my druid education, the only thing we had of the other were memories and a very rare phone call. Then my mom fell in love with Phil and eventually I had to fake my death in order to help Aiden and Ethan. I had no regrets when it came to saving the twins, but sometimes I couldn't help but wonder if things would have been different if I wasn't an emissary. I'm fine. Darach gave me a doubtful look. I swear, Darach, I'm just really tired. That's it. Are you sure you don't want to see Deaton? He ran his index finger through my cheek, making me blush. Despite his bad boy exterior, he could be really sweet and romantic when he wanted to. You're very pale. Green eyes. I am the epitome of paleness, especially now that I'm technically dead. That's not what I meant and you know it. I shrugged in response and hugged my wolf tighter. To say that I was enjoying this moment was ridiculous. Being with my mate, my one perfect love, left me speechless. Still, I couldn't bring myself to forget what that girl had told me. Finding a way to tell Darach that I had to go back to Forks to do God knows what, was going to be anything but easy. Was he going to be angry? Or would he accept it without question? It was nerve-wracking to say the least. Add in the fact that I was going to be the center of attention of that tiny town again, and the high possibility of seeing the Cullen family and Jacob, who had for sure dozens of questions, was making my head spin. I know. I stopped talking and inhaled a lot of air. Here it goes. She just wanted to talk me about Forks. A soft but clear, "I'm listening," was heard. Looking up, I realized his face was giving nothing away. There was no anger or frustration whatsoever. If this was a different situation, I would be smiling and telling him he had a great poker face, which I actually think is genetic since Cora and unfortunately Darth Vader, I mean Peter, have it as well. She said I have to go back to where my journey started. Obviously I thought it was here, but when she shook her head I just knew. I actually witnessed some weird stuff there before coming to California. As did the entire high school. I'm coming with you. It wasn't a request or a question but a statement. Darach was coming with me and there was nothing more to it. I would love that, but are you sure you want to meet my ex-boyfriend, his family and Jacob? I mean, I would totally understand if it is too much. Darach silenced me with a kiss. My mind suddenly became completely blank and whatever argument I had, simply disappeared. Stop arguing with me. You are not going alone. Kissing his throat, I managed to whisper a, "Thank you." We stayed wrapped in each other's embrace until I noticed something on the Neemton stump. What the hell? In one of the centuries-old cracks on the tree, a bunch of roots were sticking out. Grabbing my phone, for some light, I looked closer. The roots were not very deep, in fact they seemed quite recent. Maybe a couple of months old. Are those roots? Yeah. Do you know what this means? Darach kissed my head in a comforting gesture. The Neemton is growing itself back and someone pulled that sprout out. That explains why you were coughing blood. Who would do something like this? And why couldn't this supernatural sanctuary stop being disturbed? Now that I was bound to this tree, this sort of thing hurt me even more. Even more so than when I was a mere druid. How can people be so cruel? How can I leave when someone is messing around with a druid sanctuary? Darach's phone went off. It's Isaac. Apparently, the twins heard about what happened and are freaking out. I smiled in response. I loved those boys. Regardless of everything we had gone through, I would always consider him part of my family. They were like my much older annoying brothers who regularly behaved like children. Don't you mean Aiden is freaking out? The statement in itself made my boyfriend smirk. Even though they were brothers. And twins at that, the truth is Ethan and Aiden were complete opposites. Ethan was quiet and observant and Aiden, well, let's just say his first response to everything is a punch. I sometimes wonder how Lydia deals with his jealousy. I've witnessed it firsthand and it's quite amusing. Let's go before he decides to come looking for us himself. I kept looking back at the magical Celtic tree, as Styles called it, as we walked out of woods towards the car, unable to forget what I had seen. I took a deep breath of the cold night air, trying to relax and focus on something. Before I left, I would make sure that Alan knew what was going on. I was nervous. What exactly was I going to do in Forks? I hated riddles. Would the Cullens interfere with my life or just let me be? I hope they chose the second option because, in all fairness, my plate is more than full. And what about Jacob? I was sure the pack would leave me alone since they couldn't care less about me, but my so-called childhood friend could be a persistent pain in the ass when he wanted to. And if all of those weren't enough, someone was clearly watching the growing process of the Neemton, which made me freak out. Considering my life literally depended on that tree. Stop thinking about it or both of us will go insane. I tried to think of something to say, but Darach beat me to it. Whatever is scaring you, fight it off. You killed the demon wolf, remember? Facing your vampire ex-boyfriend and the coyote shapeshifter is a piece of cake, Bella. I sighed in response. I'm not scared of seeing them, well, not really anyway. It's just I'm going back to Forks, but I have no idea of what I'm supposed to do. Some of them will want answers and I'm just glad you'll be there with me. I'm so not ready to do this alone. The car stopped in the middle of the road. Taking off both of our seatbelts, Darach pushed me closer to him. Anytime, babe. I love you, I said and kissed his cheek. I know, I love you too. We were acting like sappy teenagers, but none of us cared. For the rest of the drive, my body remained as close to his as possible. I was beyond grateful that we were given a second chance. Finally, Bella, how are you? Said Allison as she stepped into the Stilinskys' front yard. I'm okay. Is everyone else inside? The huntress nodded. As I entered the front door, everyone got up and smiled at me. Scott, Isaac, Lydia and Styles all started hugging me and looking for injuries of some kind. Thank God you're back. Are you okay? I was so worried, Bella. I ignored all of them when my eyes fell on the twins. Aiden relaxed instantly and stopped frowning when he saw me. Ethan, however, was the one that scared me. His skin looked so pale and sickly. There were very dark circles under his eyes and his smile made him look even worse than he already was. He looked like a zombie. Ethan Maxwell, what the hell happened to you? I'm fine. The fact he kept repeating that sentence every 5 minutes was the exact reason I did not believe him. Usually when people said they were fine, it meant that they most likely weren't. And how do I know that? Because I had used the exact same word more than 1,000 times. I said it when my mom asked me how I felt about her leaving. I said it when I found out that my pack had been wiped out. I said it after Aiden killed that girl in front of me. And I said it once more when I realized that I was never going to see them again. The difference was, when I said it, people usually believed me, which was the complete opposite of what was happening right now. Despite how much he tried to convince us, Ethan was very easy to read. I knew that he was lying and every other person in the room knew that too. Stop lying, Ethan, I all but yelled. Honestly, I had no idea what was more infuriating, the fact that he kept feeding us lies or that he apparently didn't trust us enough to ask for help. I'm not, he yelled back, taking me by surprise. In more than 10 years, I had never heard Ethan yell. He was the collected, rational older twin. Why is it so hard for you to believe me? For everyone to believe me? Oh, I don't know, maybe it's the way you look, said Styles full of sarcasm, making Ethan turn his head around so fast in his direction that if he was just a normal human he would have broken his neck. When the boy noticed the werewolf's death-worthy glare, he moved slightly closer to Scott. He's right, man. No offense, but you sort of look like an extra from The Walking Dead. What is this? Ganging up on Ethan Day? I rolled my eyes, making him huff really loud. Stop being dramatic, Cuddles. That's Aiden's job. Hey, Lydia's mate protested but shut up when I gave him a, you know I'm right look. Silence fell on the crow. WDED living room, but Aiden was the only one that inched closer to us. Placing his hands on Ethan's shoulders, Aiden turned him around. Just tell us, bro. Whatever it is, we'll help you. Shrugging his brother's embrace roughly, Ethan gritted his teeth and answered him. I don't need any help, Aiden. Just trust me on this, okay? Like hell, he's going to trust you. I said before I could help myself. We're not blind, Ethan, so cut the crap. You haven't gone to school, you barely talk to anyone, and, I paused looking at his face again, and by the looks of it, you haven't slept in ages. He glared hard, and I have to admit I have never felt so scared in my entire life. I realized now that killing Deucalion and dealing with my uncle-in-law were nothing compared to this. Lydia and Allison were standing close to each other. And while the brunette was clearly keeping her emotions in check, the redhead had her eyes wide with fear. Styles, Scott and Isaac kept looking at each other. I knew what they were thinking without having to be a mind reader. Who was this and what had he done with Ethan? And that just proved to me that something really serious was going on with him. And I'll be damned if I don't find out. Knock it off. You are scaring her. While one of the few people I considered my family glared down at my mate, I kept thinking of reasons for his behavior. Was it because he was no longer an alpha? Or was his sudden breakup with Danny bringing out his inner anger? Ethan, I said slowly, and his eyes landed on me again. He looked so upset and tired that my heart almost stopped beating every time I looked at him. I'm sorry. I'm just worried about you. All of us are. This is not you. His brown eyes narrowed once again and I gulped. You're a part of my family and I just want to help. I get that you're upset about Danny and about losing your alpha status, but... And that was the worst thing I could have ever said to him, even though I had made sure to say it in a nice way. Shut up, he said with gritted teeth. His voice was so low that I barely heard him despite being extremely close to him. You don't know anything, and the fact that you think you do, makes me sick. I could not believe in what he had said. What the hell? There is nothing you can do to help me because I don't need anything from you. Stay the hell out of my life. He paused and I was so shocked that my brain went blank. I couldn't think, or even breathe for that matter. If I was feeling bad before, now I felt bile forming on my mouth because I knew, deep down, that the next sentences he would say were going to hurt more than anything. You're not my emissary anymore, Bella. The pack is dead and so are you. The werewolf's nostrils flared as if he was an enraged dragon. Stop trying to fix everything and everyone. If you hadn't tried that 4 years ago they would still be alive. His statement hit me so hard that I actually took a step back. How could he, out of everyone that could have said that to me? I never thought he would be the one to actually use that to hurt me. To hurt us. Regardless of how much time had passed, our pack's death was still a very sore subject. I was deeply hurt but also really angry. How could he question everything I had done to help them? I barely had life, but I never complained because this was what I was born for. My mentor always told me that this job was the hardest thing I would ever do, and even if I did believe him back then I still had some hope that everything would end up the way it should. I wasn't so sure of that right now. Ethan was unrecognizable. I could faintly hear Aiden berating him. You know what? I said when I finally regained my senses. Tears were threatening to fall, but being me, I fought them. I would not be weak. Especially since today seemed to be let's be a dick day. We should stop right here, Ethan, before we end up hurting each other even more. I'll stay out of your business. I have other things to focus on anyway. I said while trying hard to keep my voice stable. Oh, now you want to drop the subject? How convenient, he said, clearly mocking me. Can't you handle the truth, Bella? Didn't you want me to be honest with you? Man, just stop. This is going way too far. My fists were clenched and I could hear the blood. My heart was pumping very clearly. Next thing I know, my hand connected with Ethan's face with a hard and loud smack. You don't have to rub it in, Ethan. I know, better than anyone, that the reason Cyril, Lexa and the others are dead is because I screwed up. At the mention of their names, I felt my knees go weak, and if it wasn't for Darach, I would have fallen. I remember them every single day, and if I could bring them back, I would. For 4 years, my mom looked at me like I was a failure. Do you know why? Because I wasn't capable of doing the very things she spent her whole life teaching me. For 4 years, all I wanted to do was to change what happened, but I can't. And trust me, I have tried. So yeah, I understand that the emissary bond is broken, but you and Aiden are my family and there is no way that I'm going to let you get hurt, physically or emotionally, if I can help it. I just can't lose anybody else. Someone wrapped their arms around me and after a while I realized that someone was Lydia. We were both crying our eyes out. Moments later, Aliso joined us, but I didn't pay attention to her because my teary eyes were focused on the twins. I'm sorry I was such a shitty emissary, I really am. If I hadn't tried to kill Brandon. Ethan looked speechless after my outburst, and it seemed that after everything I had said, he wouldn't talk to me anytime soon. A river of questions followed after I finally confessed my biggest secret. All I could hear was, you did what? Who the hell is Brandon? And, you tried to kill someone. Why the fuck did you try to kill Brandon? Were you insane? Said Aiden. I had to do something. The bullying was going too far and my voice was trembling so bad that I stopped talking. I'm confused, muttered Isaac, who, true to his character, had stayed mostly in silence throughout the whole argument. Can any of you enlighten the rest of us about whatever you guys are talking about? And that was exactly what Aiden did. Brandon was our alpha's son. Since his dad was never around, he took it upon himself to act as an authority figure among the pack. Even though he was 17 at the time, he was one of the most cruel people the three of us had ever met. He enjoyed flaunting his power, and most of his time was spent torturing the Omegas or the werewolves in the pack that he considered unworthy. Of course his dad was not aware of any of this, and even if I tried warning him, he would just not pay attention. When I tried to talk some sense into Brandon, he would just say that it was his pack and that he could do whatever he wanted. When did you decide to kill him? Allison's voice was devoid of any emotion. I had no doubt that if Brandon was still alive, she would report him to other hunters. Lexa got beaten up so bad one night that even with her healing abilities it took her days to get back on her feet. She was just a child. I had to do something, so one night when everyone was already sleeping I sneaked into his room and stabbed him with a knife dipped in wolfsbane. I paused. I thought I had used enough. But it turns out he grew some sort of immunity to it because the next day, he was better than ever. While I was out, he started torturing everybody, and when it was mine and Ethan's turn we lost it and killed everyone, including our alpha who arrived after we killed his son. The only sound heard in the whole house was that of a clock. I watched everyone's facial expressions. Allison and Ethan showed no emotion whatsoever. Lydia, in the meanwhile, had moved and was now curled around Aiden's body and rubbing his chest. Scott, Styles and Isaac looked beyond shocked. And Darach kept a tight hold on me while rubbing his cheek on the top of my head. Why didn't the three of you leave? Joined another pack or something? Isaac, it doesn't work that way. Once you're bound to a pack there's no undoing it. But Darach's not dead, so does that mean? Talia's son looked up and gave a small smile to his former beta. I'm not dead, but I'm also not an alpha anymore, which means that our bond is broken. Styles rubbed his head in a stressful manner. God, this is all so freaking complicated. We all chuckled, only him to make us want to laugh after such a depressing conversation. Tell me about it. You're really good at this, muttered Allison as a Chinese ring dagger hit the bull's eye. Hardly. This, I said waving at the wall, is the power of the warriors talking. If you asked me to do this 6 months ago, I would probably cut off one of my fingers. It's still pretty impressive if you ask me. Grabbing her bow, the brunette got ready to shoot a few more rows while I grabbed the daggers once again. It was an early Sunday afternoon and the two of us were having some girl time. Lydia would join us in a couple of minutes. Her parents wanted to have a family lunch with her, considering she would be away for a week. When I told my friends that Darach and I would be going to Forks, they all insisted on coming with us. It was hard to convince the school to let us leave, but since Lydia would be going and considering she was more than a capable tutor, the parents managed to make an agreement with the school. We would be free to miss a whole week of SSES if we studied enough to keep our grades up. The only exception to this was Isaac, who unfortunately would not be able to make it. Instead he agreed to stay behind and keep an eye on the Neemton and on Kira. Allison narrowed her eyes, and shot the arrows after a few seconds. They ended up landing inches away from the center of the target. It's getting better. I tried to comfort her. Yeah, until I freak out again and totally miss. Placing her bow on the floor and taking of her glove she sat down, Indian style. I sat down next to her. I have nightmares too, you know. It's all part of magical imprint, the ritual or death in my case left on your soul. That's why you have an emotional tether. Tilting her head, she looked straight into my eyes. You do. How do you deal with them? Once again, I grabbed the daggers and started throwing them, keeping my eyes shut. As expected, all of them landed perfectly on the central red portion of the target on the wall. I shrugged in response to her question. How did I deal with it? Should I tell her the truth or make up a white lie in order to make her feel better? The truth, I decided, was the best road to take. I don't know, to be honest. I try to focus on every other thing I can. But you don't have to do the same. Your nightmares or visions, whatever you want to call them, will disappear eventually. Mine, however, won't, not until the Neemton dies and takes me along. I added silently on my mind. Pain does help though. Allison raised an eyebrow, clearly asking what I meant. Whenever things get bad, I pinch myself because, quote, it forces your brain to focus on something else. She completed. Exactly, but that is the job of your tether. That connection exists to keep you grounded. If you have trouble, just talk to someone. It doesn't matter who, just don't keep it in. Thank you, for everything. Hugging each other, I thanked her too, for coming with me to Forks, for inviting me to spend the whole weekend with her and Fo. Are becoming one of the best friends someone could ever ask for. Over the last 2 days, Allison and I had bonded quite a bit. She told me about her uneasiness around Isaac and the others. Things were till a bit awkward around them after everything she did to him during her dark phase, her words not mine. In return I confided in her about my fears over Ethan and Aiden and the guilt I felt over not being able to protect Lexa, who was the youngest in my pack, and several others. Sometimes it felt good to just let everything out. In the end you had two choices: either get all the anger and resentment out or let it destroy you. A few days had gone by since my little fight with Ethan, and I hadn't heard from him ever since. However, Aiden called me a few hours ago and promised that the two of them would go with us to Forks. Not that I would mind if they decided to stay here. The huntress grabbed several small knives including the Chinese ring daggers, placed them in a leather bag and inside her suitcase. Since I can't use the bow and arrows, I might as well grab plenty of other stuff I can use, she said while twirling an electric cattle rod. In the meantime, an energetic knock on the door interrupted us. Are you two ready? Yeah, lieds. Grabbing our suitcases we loaded them into the car with the help of Mr. Argent. Hugging the older man goodbye, we drove off ready to pick up another one of our friends. The three of us, plus Styles, would go in Lydia's car and Darach would give Scott a ride. I assumed that Ethan and Aiden would use their bikes or ask my mate for a ride too. As we drove off, I couldn't help but sigh. I was not in any way ready to go back to Charlie's house. So what's the plan? I mean, what are we going to do about Vampire Boy and the shapeshifter people when we meet them? Clearly, you are not the same person they knew. I shrugged because for once I had no idea what to say. 6 months ago, I left Forks without saying a goodbye to either Edward or Jacob, which I feel slightly guilty about, but at the same time, if I had told them I would have never left. Edward was as possessive as someone or something could possibly be, and Jacob was a sweet kid, but his persistence to date me even after I told him that I just wanted to be his friend really freaked me out. The few times I spoke to my dad, he told me that the Cullens, especially Alice and Edward and Jacob, kept asking him questions about me which he somehow managed to avoid answering, but my gut was telling me that even after all this time they hadn't given up. Honestly, I don't know. There's a very high possibility either of them will break into my house and demand answers as soon as they find out that I'm back. The girls glanced at me with a disbelieving look. Are you serious? Unfortunately, yes. Edward is the kind of person, or should I say vampire, that doesn't know how to take no for an answer, and Jacob and his persistence can be very annoying, though I'm positive the rest of the pack will leave us alone. They don't care about me. In fact, I'm pretty sure they hate my guts. Really? Just you wait until all of them find out that you are not as defenseless and fragile as they think you are. Truer words could never be spoken. They would call me a liar and a hypocrite, not that I cared. People kept secrets for a reason anyway. Pulling up in front of the Stilinskys' house, Lydia honked and our friend repeated the process done at the Argents a couple of minutes ago. The redhead continued her driving after Styles entered the car. Arriving at nearest airport took us a while, but to my joy, Darach and Scott were already waiting for us. Lydia parked the car and told us she had paid for it to stay here for the entire week, in case we had to come back early or something. Checking in, since our flight was within the hour, we waited for Aiden and Ethan, who arrived 10 minutes later. They both looked angry and a little frustrated. We need to talk, mouthed Aiden, making me nod. At least half an hour went by, until we were able to go somewhere without arousing Ethan's suspicion. There has to be something we can do to help him. He barely sleeps an hour every night and he ends up screaming his lungs out. He barely speaks. There's only so much of depressed Ethan I can take. Taking a deep breath, Aiden continued. What can we do? I thought about our options. First, we had to make him rest, and maybe then we could have an honest conversation about what was really bothering him. There's something I can get that will make him sleep. Perfect. Where do we get it? Slow down, Aiden. When I say sleep, I'm talking about a 14-hour dreamless sleep, at the very least. Besides, it's not that easy to find. My mom told me about an apothecary somewhere in Port Angeles. I can try to find it there, but you know how those places work. Apothecaries these days were mostly run by Volvas, and even though they were mostly benevolent, they did not hesitate in king a profit if they thought they deserved it. I'll talk to my mom first, and then I will try to find some ashwagandha root, but this time we'll make it right. No more lying to Ethan. Fine, I can deal with that. Last call to Flight 281 to Seattle. All passengers should board within the next 15 minutes. Come on. We walked back towards the others and entered the plane. Hopefully Ethan would accept our help and I could focus on keeping the Cullens and Jacob at bay and on whatever the ghosts wanted me to do. One could only hope. The landing in Seattle was smooth, and after catching Aneth flight to Port Angeles I was feeling incredibly tired. As soon as we landed, Darach rented out a 9-seat SUV and I started to drive towards my childhood home. This is it. My dad will go to DCT. Tomorrow, so we will have the house to ourselves for the whole week. That is awesome, as long as the rain stops. God damn it, we've been here for less than 5 minutes and I already hate this freaking town. I rolled my eyes. Stop whining, Aiden, it's not like it doesn't rain in California. He huffed and knocked on the door, while I anxiously waited for Charlie to open it. The end.